I want to deal with a bigger insult, man. The heat. It's coming down hard. We got to get our shit together. Now, we always been loose. Dealing off the turf like it was never gonna run dry. That ain't no business. No other game is run so disorganized. Look around. Everything that is taking care of business is together. Dig it tight. And together.
Except us.
Right. And now we feeling the heat. And the action's gonna get scarce, and the turf is gonna get hard.
What are you saying, Bill? Now, we've seen these times before.
Never so heavy as now.
Well, I don't see any other way other than to ride it out.
There is a way. We organize.
Portions of the following program may be unsuitable for younger or more sensitive viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
Disclaimer! Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowances made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news, reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit education or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. This video was made for entertainment purposes and is transformative in nature.
You feel, however, that we're making progress in this country and worldwide?
No. I will never say that progress is being made. If you stick a knife in my back 9 inches and pull it out 6 inches, there's no progress. If you pull it all the way out, that's not progress. The progress is healing the wound that the blow made. And they haven't even begun to pull the knife out, much less try and heal the wound. They won't even admit the knife is there. You haven't.
Hey, John, what do you want us to take away from this extraordinary series of yours? Well, I want people who are not Latin to have Latin envy and wish they had been born Latin, and for Latin people to realize, damn, being Latin is a superpower, man. I mean, the things that we've suffered in this country, 500 years, our wealth was stolen from us. We were lynched. We were burned, shot alive. We've been the only American citizens that have ever been deported by the millions. And yet we contribute and we build and we thrive.
To me, if you have been here for 5 years and you do not have a criminal record, you will be able to go on the dignity status for 7 years.
That status is like a probation period.
You will not be deported. You will not lose your assets. You can work anywhere in the country. You will pay taxes.
And there would be an additional tax.
A new levy of 1.5 withholding called the dignity levy will be held from your paycheck. You will not have access to any government program and will have to buy your own health insurance.
And another charge.
You will pay $700 a year for 7 years, and that adds up to around $5,000. Those $5,000 will represent around $45 billion.
This is provided that the undocumented immigrants total 10 million, but there are more.
And that fund will go to pay for border security. The other bucket of money, the 1.5, will go to re-educate or retrain any American who believes that he or she has lost his opportunity, his job opportunity, to an undocumented.
Some of the other legislators who support the bill said they are aware that it is not perfect. They said it's better than doing nothing.
Various groups, feminist, gay rights groups, and those who are defending immigrants have commandeered the black civil rights experience.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that because I think it's one of the most important points of the book. I mean, I think the way liberals have treated blacks like children and many of their policies have been harmful to blacks. At least they got the beneficiary group right. We do have to, I mean, we shouldn't. There is the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow laws. We don't owe the homeless. We don't owe feminists. We don't owe women who are desirous of having abortions, but that's, or gays who want to get married to one another. That's what civil rights has become for much of the left. They dropped the blacks after 5 minutes.
Immigrant rights are not civil rights?
No, I think civil rights are for blacks. We done to the immigrants. We owe black people something. We have a legacy of slavery. Immigrants haven't even been in this country. Democrats are dropping the blacks and moving on to the Hispanics because they're a larger group of Hispanics now. But can I just say to Jorge, I hate to disagree with you when you're attacking President Obama, but I think the point on immigration is you can have open borders or you can have a welfare state. You cannot have both.
Doing a great job in the heart these days.
You late again, Eddie.
Trying to do. You ain't gonna do it. See, Big Red done pulled my coattail to you a long, long time ago.
That's bullshit, Eddie. You talking crazy.
Crazy like a motherfucking fox. And you, I can see through your jive ass like glass, nigga. Eddie, you got it all wrong, man. Stealing my moves. My style, nigga, even trying to riff like me. Hey, man, why don't you get your boy out of here and detox him? You on my spot, Flash? Slum-dwelling, scum-sucking, slug-ass motherfucker. You on my spot, Flash? Huh? Well, you ain't gonna get it, cause you ain't got it.
These kind of boys seems innocent, Boogie. Got everybody on the post thinking he's a strong black buck. White boys envy his strength, his speed, power in his swing. Then this colored champion lets those same white boys call him Shine or Sambo.
Whoa,
and he just smiles.
Dream about the time when I was a little boy.
Can't talk.
The night would get
Can barely read or write his own name. And don't care. He'll tell you they like him. Or that colored folks ain't supposed to have but so much sense.
Yes, he would.
You know the damage one ignorant Negro can do. We were in France in the First War. We'd won decorations. But the white boys had told all them French gals that we had tails. Then they found this ignorant colored soldier. Paid him to tie a tail to his ass and run around half naked making monkey sounds. They put him on a big round table in the Cafe Napoleon. Put a reed in his hand. Crown on his head, blanket on his shoulders, and made him eat bananas in front of all them Frenchies. Oh, the white boys danced that night. Passed out leaflets with that boy's picture on it. Called him Moonshine, king of the monkeys. And when we slit his throat, you know that fool asked us what he had done wrong. My daddy told me we got to turn our backs on his kind, Wilkie. Close our ranks to the chitlins, the collard greens, the cornbread style. We are men, soldiers. And I don't intend for our race to be cheated out of its place of honor and respect in this war because of fools like CJ. You watch everything he does. Everything.
You said your people have been fighting for 400 years.
Man, your peoples too.
So I just want you to explain what you mean by that.
You know what I'm talking about. Y'all all know what I'm talking about, man. Don't sit up here and try to bait and not know what I'm talking about. Y'all know what the I talk about when I say these things. Your people too.
Explain it. Not everybody knows what you're talking about.
Radio Raheem, I don't have to explain what's understood, man. You know what I mean by that. You know what I said by that. I ain't got to go further. And if anybody don't understand that, then God be with them. Go look up the history. Go look up the history. Don't everybody believe in Google? Go Google that. See what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about, man. You know what. I dare you to sit up there and say, explain. You know what I'm talking about, man. He's fighting people. You know we've been fighting 400 and still fighting to this day. To this day. To this day. You just sit here, you don't know.
And since the American white man has used his control over the press to rewrite history or retell history, and since the white man can't dispute this truth, it's not hate to say that we were kidnapped and brought here, it's truth. It's not hate to say that we were Jim Crow, discriminated and segregated, it's truth. It's not hate to say that the Supreme Court, which is the highest court in this country, came up with a hypocritical desegregation decision 9 years ago, which they haven't enforced yet. That's not hate, that's truth.
Remember, the enemy has only images and illusions, behind which he hides his true motives. Destroy the image, and you will break the enemy. Remember, the enemy has only images and illusions, behind which he...
Welcome to the most hated show in the black corner of YouTube. I am your host, the whiteologist, Mr. Blows Your Minds. And this is WeUpReport. I'm your host, Mr. Blows Your Minds. Before we get into anything, we definitely got to go ahead and we got to give a shout out for this brother here, man. The greatest subscriber in the history of YouTube. This brother here gives that my family and I are very thankful. And when this brother does what he do, when many of y'all who don't, he actually gives on behalf of y'all that don't. And so it's a person like me will always give gratitude, congratulations, and much thanks and heartfelt to that brother there that you see on your screen, Mr. Spence 0620, like no other subscriber, y'all. I would never tell you the numbers, but that is a real brother. This is a real subscriber. This is one that makes what people like myself who struggle, who been fighting for years to do what I do. It's a brother like this that allow me to keep doing what I do. So I want to tip our hats off. Happy New Year's to you and your family, from me to yours. In gratitude, as always, I'm thankful for every time. And when you continue to do it, always appreciate it, brother. Mr. Spence 0620 was Cash App last show. Once again, brother, always in gratitude for what you do. Now, wanted to get that off because we want to always give that for them. Now, again, if you're new to the show, this is the WeUpReport show. I'm your host, Mr. Blow Your Minds. If you're new to the show, we would like for a cover charge. Go ahead and hit that like button because I've been noticing that the last show got 145 views. Once it got about 15 likes, they stopped it. So I believe they got it where it won't go beyond. I got the views a little bit, right? Crawled, but go ahead for the cover charge. You know, we don't got ladies' night. So everybody go hit that like button for them. Let's see if we can push that mug out because it looked like they be subtracted. Because I be having family members doing things, and I come back and I look and I say, they took all them away. So what it is for the cover charge, y'all could do that for me. I'd like to appreciate that. And if you happen to be the first time coming here, welcome to the most hated show in the black corner of YouTube. Been in the business. Going to click another year this year when it comes to that anniversary. Happy to go down the aisle, see something that might make you feel some kind of way. Remember, the motto of my show is the truth. Don't need no partner. Now, just in case you might have clicked on due to the thumbnail, you might have due it to the fact that you seen the title of the show. I think my thumbnail in here is going to be a little off from that spelling. I think somebody kind of jumped the gun on there. It looked like it's strategy, but it's probably strategy, plausible deniability. Let me say that one more again. Strategy, you got a letter too many on that. Somebody jumped the gun on that. But strategy of plausible deniability. Okay? Plausible deniability is when people are a chain, right? You know, like there's a pyramid scheme when you have that at the top and those at the bottom. When somebody had to deny the information or the knowledge or the responsibilities for the action or lack thereof committed by somebody in that chain, and they become willfully ignorant or they shift the blame onto others who carry out the acts. It's kind of like talking to us with an ASL. You know what that ASL is? American Sign Language. It's like some of the stuff I've been seeing lately, that when it's come to this political game, and there's some of our people who play in that game, and a lot of us, again, that's just sitting on the wall, watching, observing. That's what we do over here. WeUpReport. We watch what done gone over the week, and we come back and we come and give you a blue, which means we're going to interpret from my perspective what I've seen over the week. Because I think that's one of the hardest things that we don't have when it comes to in the black corner. We have different perspectives about things, about Hollywood, hip hop. But when it comes to interpreting the things that's going on that affects us, it's far and few to less, not many of us who do it. And so I'll try to come and give a little perspective from my angle, from how I'm seeing it. And I relate it to those of you who are avid watchers and subscribers over here. And I always appreciate when your comments and so forth. But that's what we do over here, right? So in this case here, we're talking about, again, ASL is American Sign Language. And that's like somebody, when you be watching the closed caption, without reading the closed caption, you see the little person on the side and they're doing the hand language. You don't know what they're saying, but you're seeing them doing the signals and the language in the American Sign Language, but you don't know what they're saying. But you will assume they're probably talking about the same thing what you're hearing. And that's kind of like what we're seeing with this political stuff. Some things that took place, and it's like they sign languages like they not really talking to us, but they talking about us. But you may not know what I'm talking about, but as we go on, we're going to show what I'm talking about on that, right? And so that the fact that the, let's say, sign language us, and then they otherwise really the best way to really put it in a way that we all understand, they playing us like we will, like Wilma and Willie Lump Lump. Let me put it to a more street term for us to understand. They playing us like we Willie and Wilma Lump Lump, right? You know, now it's really coming that season when they kind of need you, but they done played you for almost 4 years, and now situation is now you need you again. But see, the case come. You ever seen them up with that burn both sides of the damn bridge? Now your ass drowning, but then you look in with those slow eyes. I'm gonna die if you don't help me. But because you done burnt the bridge on this side, you done burnt the bridge on that side. Now it's like hard for you to even come to me and ask. And even though you was sitting there drowning, you hoping that somehow you could get my emotions to forget about all that and let's go forward with this, right? That's kind of like this, right? Okay, all right, I'm gonna show what I'm talking about that we go forward on this. And they'll put us our emotions, and that again, here it is, they want to talk about gaffes, right? We've seen a situation over there with that Nikki Haley. We're going to talk about that and trying to use the gaffe of situation of civil war and some other things. And we're going to go ahead and delve into it. Just in case you didn't see that, we're going to delve into that, right? So first of all, let's go ahead and get into this. Matter of fact, I did get a message from Aboriginal Knowledge. Happy New Year to you and your family, from me and mine to yours. Glad to see you stop by, brother, right? And everybody else in here. For those who on the celebration of the New Year's, what I say is what we get from New Year's is we get another date on our tombstone. Let me say that one more again. Well, so, you know, those who might have passed between December 31st and back, you already gone in a year just for the fact of the clicking of 2024. So many of us now, if something happened from this point forward, we're at least going to get 2024 on our tombstone, right? But we also looking for the brighter new adventures that we will be endeavoring as this year goes forward, and looking to have some good days as we traverse, and I and WeUpReport also give theirs to you and yours as well. So let's go ahead and get into this. So let's start off with the show with, again, I seen this here with this clyburn, and look how he's gonna come right out the bat. Now, it's funny, the brother that's gonna do the interview with him gonna remind him how significant he was that got the person in there then, and then look how he gonna rah for him. But peep this as we go ahead and be right back. Check this out.
Set to ring in the new year, I am super excited to welcome my next guest. Joining me now is Congressman Jim Clyburn of South Carolina. He represents the state's 6th congressional district and serves as the assistant Democratic leader. But beyond all of that, this is my friend, my brother, and my fraternity man. How are you? Good afternoon, or good morning, rather. Let's get right to it, big brother, sir. This current Congress, it has been the least productive in decades, and we've got to really deal squarely with that. According to Axios, just 20 bills that have been in the House and the Senate have passed this year. That's it, just 20. And there's a laundry list of agenda items that still have to get done. We've got funding for the government on a permanent basis. We've got passing bills for allies abroad and foreign aid. We've got immigration reform and so many others. You've been in the seat for a very long time. Do you see any clear path to get us beyond this point of stagnation?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me, and Happy New Year to my frat. Thank you so much for having me with you. Look, we are in a very critical stage here in this country, and it's reflected in the Congress. As you know, the Republican Party has just seemed to have disintegrated. It's now being controlled by what seems to be a cult, and they have decided that there are certain things that they will not allow to happen, and that is what it takes to continue this country on its pursuit of perfection. That's what this country has been about since the beginning. And we have always been in pursuit of a more perfect union. They seem to want everything to be perfect to their liking, or else it does not happen. And so that's why we have not gotten much done in the Congress. And when we have closed ranks to do what benefits the country, we have seen a reaction from the Republican base. First, throwing out a Speaker of the House for working with the Democrats in order to keep the country moving forward. And now another threat for the new Speaker of the House because he has found it necessary to do things to keep the government running. So, no, I don't see anything happening without a definitive election. That's what makes 2024 so important. That's what makes these primaries so important. And I would hope that the Supreme Court would move quickly to make its decisions on this election going forward, because I think the Republican voters have a right to vote for candidates without clouds hanging over them. This cloud can be removed very quickly if the court will act as it did with Al Gore, and it also did with former President Nixon.
Congressman Cloward-Piven, you know, I'm going to shoot straight with you. And if don't nobody else say it, I'm going to say it. Sir, you, are in no small part responsible for altering the course of history when it comes to presidential elections. Everyone remembers what happened during the primaries in 2020 because Joe Biden came into South Carolina in 4th place. And it was your endorsement in that primary that catapulted him to gain the momentum that was necessary to secure the nomination and ultimately become the president. A lot of what happened there was giving a nod to Black America. And I got to ask you straight, do you feel like the president has delivered on what that nod represented?
Absolutely. You can go down by the numbers, starting with the Rescue Act, getting our schools reopened, getting our businesses back on their feet. He did the things that were necessary, bringing over half of the children who were living in poverty, and much as a result of COVID-19, brought them out of poverty with the rescue plan. Then he moved with the largest infrastructure bill that we've had in this country since Dwight Eisenhower's Interstate Highway. Then the CHIPS and Science Act, bringing manufacturing back to this country. Then he went with the Inflation Reduction Act, cutting the cost of medicine, reducing insulin down to $35 a month. My late wife died from diabetes. And I can tell you, I saw $800 and $900 a month insulin bills because she was a full shot a day diabetic. So I know what it is if you can reduce that cost to $35 a month. The PAC Act, getting those veterans who were not treated fairly coming back from the Vietnam War, getting that done. And then the all-important student, public service student elimination of the student debt of public servants. Over $132 million in debt relief to 3.4 million people. Student debt relief. We keep hopping on that one part that the Supreme Court outlawed, and we don't even talk about the 32 million, many of whom are here in my district. I ran across a gentleman a couple of weeks ago, got $200,000 relief from debt. He had 3 degrees, borrowed money for all of them, thought he would go to his grave still alone that money, and because of Joe Biden, it's gone away. So yes, he has kept his promise. Now, we have not been able to do voting. Why? Because the Supreme Court has prevented us from doing it. And just like they prevented us from doing the other part of debt relief, Joe Biden has kept his promise to the American people. And I think he has been an incredibly good president. I think the best producer since Lyndon Baines Johnson Great Society program back in the 1964 and 65.
All right, we back, right? We back, right? Right? You know, that's what I'm saying, man. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes we just stay too damn long. You've been sitting in the seat too damn long. Well, let's go ahead and get in there, right? Let's go ahead, right? I know y'all love this, right? Now, you see, it's the brother that was sitting there talking to him, called him Big Brother, because they got some fraternity affinity with each other, right? So he's going to be respectful for him because there's some kid that he said he called him Big Brother, right? And then he talked about how the Congress this year, only 20 bills have passed the entire year in Congress. Only 20. I think it's really about 23 when I did my research. I think it was about 23, right? And when it comes to them bills, how many of them bills deal with us as, you know, Indigenous Americans? Some say Black Americans, Tasha's Indigenous, Niji, Aboriginals, all the above, right? How many of them bills have something to do with us, and how do we benefit from it, if at all, right? And as the young brother sat there and talked about how the fact that he has sat in that seat a long time and the stagnation that's happened. And I guess that's really what happens. When we have people like Clyburn sitting in seats and long tenures, and if we was to look at the record and see that, again, what benefits have we gotten? And again, those in South Carolina particular, but when we just saying politicians that's supposed to represent those constituents of those who picked him, and you get long tenures, we have to say, well, the stagnation is when you don't raise up young ones to be your replacement. You sit way beyond your time. Instead of being a council or elder, allowing somebody young to come in there who might have more vigor, more fight than you, we're going to run to 4 flats on this Cadillac and then bust the engine, then when it's dead, then we go, right? So we don't learn how to reciprocate down to the younger ones and rear them up and get them in positions. We just gonna run it. And then, as he said, we're living in critical times in this country. Of course we are. We see the back door wide open. And as we go more into tonight's show, we're going to talk about how that back door being open and how that's affected and always will affect when it comes to we, the Indigenous Americans, the Black Americans, you know, Niji Moors, Aboriginals, however you want to call us. It's always going to affect us more than anybody else. But we're supposed to not really say anything about these things, right? So he talks about how that those that's in Congress is actually stagnating because they don't like the fact of the pursuit of perfection. Now, how could this country ever be perfected when you say you have an original stain or original sin that you acknowledge by words, right? You acknowledge it in words, but as into the deeds and to making amends for it, that won't never happen, right? And so there can never be perfection as long as, let's say, if you got on a white suit and you get a stain on it. Until you take that mug to the cleaners, no matter what you do, that stain gonna be on that suit. So there can never be perfection. So a perfect union, yeah, that sounds good in theory and practice, but in actuality, that can't happen. So they want to talk about that Speaker of the House. And that the one that they end up, because they try to get in Hakeem Jeffries, right? Which is Leonard Jeffries. Those who were about Pan-Africanism, Black in New York. That's Hakeem Jeffries is the other Jeffries that I said. That's his nephew, right? But he didn't get picked, and so they kind of pissed off about that. And so he reminded him of how the fact that he was the one that saved Joe Biden when Joe Biden was in fourth place. It was you, Jim Clyburn, that gave, as the young brother said, you endorsed him, given a nod by blacks that it was okay, right? So you kind of responsible. You remember in Harlem Nights? Remember the movie Harlem Nights when Mr. Canton, when he found out that they got beat? And man, he took homie. He said, "Oh, when they remember Tommy, which was Tommy from Martin. Remember, he brought Tommy in, and remember Tommy messed up and lost their money. And then Phil Canton came and said, "Hey, it was you who brought him in, right?" So he had and said, "Put your hand by the piano." Remember that? Put your hand by the piano. Well, it was you that brought him in here, right? So I guess it's kind of your fault, right? And then what he do? He said, "If you ever bring somebody in here again," and what he did, broke that. He said, and then asked the doctor, he said, broke pretty good. Huh? It broke pretty good. See, you want the accountability, the plausible accountability is people bringing people in that didn't want to deny the fact that you brought him in, and then got all this other litany of stuff as he went in and talked about, saying why he's such a good candidate, right? Why he's such a good candidate. You gave the impression that black people gave the nod and the wink that it was okay. But we're going to go back over that a little bit, right? And then the young brother asked him, well, did he deliver? Did you see him go into action? Was like Cameron's action? Oh, sure. Yeah, sure he did, right? Huh? He talked about all these things that so-called, that supposedly benefited because he got in. He even talked about his wife, who we not going to trip on that. The fact that he said that she had to take the 4 shots a day for being a diabetes. He had hundreds of dollars in bills for that, and that he lowered the cost of getting that. Okay. And then the fact that he talking about the Eisenhower Highway Act. Now, some of y'all may not know about the Eisenhower Highway Act. Do you not know that when they did that, I think it was in 1956, and I think about 1956. 1954, you did the Brown Board versus Education, right? Brown Board versus Education was in 1954. 2 years later, you came with the Highway Act to break up. Because you remember, they start segregating the schools. Even though they made it lawful, Supreme Court said, right? Then what ended up happening? They came with that Eisenhower Highway Act, which what did a lot of those highways go through? Black communities, black businesses, black churches. A lot of the stuff that we got displaced on to make them separations and then create them suburbs came because of that Eisenhower Act. And that's what you want to try to make a comparison to? Now, I know some of the people might be young, you don't know the history like that, but that's what we report over here. That's what we do. So we'll talk about stuff like that, right? Now, he talked about that. Then he talked about how LBJ, right, Lyndon Baines Johnson. Now, wait a minute. Remember last year I told you that there's a quote, you can go look it up, that he himself said that he would have black people voted Democrat for the next two, but he didn't say black people, he said niggas. I had those niggas voting for the next 200 years. Well, he got almost 60. Huh? He almost got a 60 because right now, you know, this is why the subliminal, this is why the pandering is happening, because they kind of feel, they know you done burnt your bridges up. And so now you're trying to find a way to try to ask without asking. You're trying to ask without asking. So he want to talk about how they eliminated the student loan. And that why y'all holding on the fact that the Supreme Court said about this? Well, technically, if you will, I think a show or two ago I did, where I kind of revealed that the way that they revamped it, the people that would pretty much get the forgiveness of their loans is people who've been out of school over 20 years, debt still might be still lingering around. Those are the people who will get it. But those children who are now and under them debts, that ain't gonna apply to you. And then he tried to throw in $132 million. What about all that money? But you understand? See, that's, you know what I'm saying? But did he keep the promise? What promise? Well, the only promise I remember when he won was this. What about this? Was this the only promise? The only promise I remember after he won, when he said something to the fact about, matter of fact, the only promise that he did keep is when he remember when he did here. I mean, a lot of y'all have seen this already, right? Remember this? We're gonna go back when 2014 to 15, which would be just basically right now be 10 years ago almost, when he hit around I don't know what month that was that he said it, but he was vice president at the time. Now the promise he did keep is that he said he praised constant, unrelenting streams of immigration into the United States. Let me say that one more again. Biden praised constant, unrelenting streams of immigration into the United States. Remember the words that I showed you that was said, because he was having a conversation with the individual that was on the plane. And on that plane, this is what he said. He was looking at me like, what's he talking about? He said, you're looking for the secret that allows America to constantly be able to remake itself. Unlike any other country in the world, I said, I can presume to tell you what that black box is, Mr. President. I'm old enough now, I said, okay? The black box is when a plane crashed. When they want to find out what was the last minutes before the crash, they get the black box so they can kind of go back and see what was happening. So the individual said, well, we're looking for the black box because we supposed to figure by now y'all should have crashed already. But he said, no, let me tell you why we haven't crashed. You know what I'm saying? He said there's a second thing in that black box, an unrelenting stream of immigration, nonstop. That was 10 years ago. He was vice president then. Do we see the nonstop now? That's all the reports we're seeing, right? Nonstop, right? And he talks about the stuff about white folks being, a minority, 150% by 2017. But then later on, when he got elected, remember this? After he got elected, remember the secret recording that came out? What did he say?
2040. This country is going to be minority white European. You hear me? Minority white European. And you guys are going to have to start working more with Hispanics, who make up a larger portion of the population than y'all do. Let's get something straight. You shouldn't be disappointed. What I've done so far is more than anybody else has done this far. Okay? Number one. Number two, I mean what I say when I say it.
Okay. So that's right. He mean what he said when he said it, right? All right. Now, let me show you something as we come up again with this immigration as we're going to move forward. Look what as January 1st being what today is. They passed something in California, and the old saying is what? As California goes, so does the nation. Check this out. I'll be right back.
California will become the first state in the nation to offer health insurance to undocumented immigrants.
Under the expansion, more than 700,000 people between the ages of 26 and 49 will be eligible for Medi-Cal. CBS 8's Rocio de la Fe takes a look at the new law and how immigrant rights advocates are reacting.
Immigrant rights advocates call the expansion of health care for undocumented immigrants a major milestone in California.
This is a really major step in California.
Advocates for immigrant rights are celebrating a monumental victory in the fight for more inclusive health care.
Yeah, I'm so grateful again. I think it's really, really important to think about how big of a precedent this is for the entire nation.
Nettie Velasquez is the border policy coordinator at Alliance San Diego. She's a DACA recipient who has been fighting and advocating for health expansion for years.
A lot of undocumented people and, a lot of low-income people, because they don't have access to these resources, they wait until the very end to hopefully receive some care. And by then it's too late. And we shouldn't have to have people, waiting until they're feeling ill to go to the doctor. We should have preventative care, and that's why this is so important.
Those who are eligible will be able to qualify for Medi-Cal, the state's health insurance program for low-income individuals. Medi-Cal offers access to primary and preventative care, specialists, prescription medicine, and more.
They also deserve a right to have access to primary needs that they don't generally have access to.
Undocumented people between the ages of 26 and 49 will be eligible for Medi-Cal. Velasquez says having access to health care is a necessity the immigrant community shouldn't have to put on hold.
I do think a lot of people for so long have literally been neglecting their health because it just hasn't been accessible to them.
California Republicans have argued that the state's Medi-Cal system could overload the state's budget. Velasquez says she thinks the state is moving in the right direction, but believes there's still more work to be done. That's because many undocumented Californians will still remain ineligible for Medi-Cal because they make too much money to qualify, but not enough to afford private insurance.
We really have to continue including more folks and to not kind of forget about the ones who just make a little bit over.
California will not use health care to share immigration information with federal officials. Rocio de la Fe, CBS 8.
All right, so we are back, right? Again, we're not anti-immigrant. We just pro for our peace. Now, again, she's saying more inclusive health care. Now, many of our people can go to a hospital, and if you ain't got no health insurance, no card, and so forth, it ain't gonna help. I done over the years that I've been doing this, I done did stories where sisters and brothers have went to the hospital, can't get no care because they didn't have no insurance. Now you're making laws that undocumented have a right. Now I was always told once I read about the Learned Elders of Zion, the protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, that right is an abstract thought. It really don't exist, right? Nobody really can give a right. But in this country with law, they do. So here it is, a right to health care. But we, Indigenous Americans, Black Americans, Needy, Moors, Aboriginals, as long as we've been here, where's all this advocacy about? As a matter of fact, when it comes to the AM, American Medical Association, we've been the guinea pigs of a lot of the experiments to further the science in medical, right? We were the guinea pigs. And so the only time it seemed like when they got caught in experiments and stuff, when they was willing to say, well, we're going to give you free healthcare, burial, and stuff like that. But other than that, no. And matter of fact, when we go in there, the statistics show that we get some of the worst healthcare going in there, especially a Black woman with a baby, right? So here it is. They have found a way in California, and they, again, the old saying is, so as California go, so does the nation. What do you mean by that, Mr. Blow Your Mind? Meaning, if California do it, other states gonna follow. But there's one thing in there that they said in that report. They talked about how state will be overloaded. Now, I want you to keep that as a checkpoint in your mind as we go forward. State being overloaded. Think about that with the whole thing with this immigration, and we're going to talk about state. And I'm going to show you some stuff about that somebody talked about, but we won't talk about it until we get there. Now, let me show you also that I was seeing this here. And again, we still talking about the same person we were talking about again, who Clyburn said he's been holding his position. He's been true. He's been doing right. But then this came up. Check this out. I'll be right back.
Just look at that train packed with migrants heading towards our southern border. It will stop in a Mexican city right across from Eagle Pass, Texas.
Local people, but this is obviously not helping whatsoever. As for the federal government, we get nothing. Alexander Mayorkas, he should be doing something about this. He should be stopping the people crossing the border, but he's not doing his job. Governor Newsom is doing nothing to help the problem, just a lot of rhetoric and happy talk about how things are going to be great. And we're also being gaslit significantly. What I mean by gaslighting is they're telling there's no problem. There's no problem with the border. Everything's under control, where our own eyes can tell.
Hey, did y'all peep that? Did y'all peep how that came across that screen? Right? Did you see how that kind of just crept up on the screen? Movie. Movie. Is this a movie, y'all? Is was that a subliminal message being sent? Yeah, there's been a lot of reports. We got reports and we hear things about buses and right? Just remember, go back last election time. Whatever happened to that group called, what was the name of that damn group? Q9? Y'all remember all that with the Q9 and all that? And a lot of people who were talking about, well, some will put it in the conspiratorial section of conversation. And they were saying that, a lot of this stuff, what we're seeing is just things being played out because there's really something else that's going to fruition, right? And then, did you see how, let me show him, I'm going to slow it down so you can hear as he's talking. And watch the train and watch how it does that. Watch this.
Doing something about this. He should be stopping the people crossing the border, but he's not doing his job. Governor Newsom is doing nothing to help the problem, just a lot of rhetoric and happy talk about how things are going to be great. And we're also being gaslit significantly. What I mean by gaslighting is they're telling there's no problem. There's no problem with the border. Everything's under control. Where our own eyes can tell us he should be doing something about this. He should be stopping the people crossing the border, but he's not doing his job. Governor Newsom is doing nothing to help the problem, just a lot of rhetoric and happy talk about how things are going to be great. And we're also being gaslit significantly. What I mean by gaslighting is they're telling there's no problem. There's no problem with the border. Everything's. What I mean by gaslighting is they're telling there's no problem. There's no problem with the border. Everything's under control.
Okay. Right? Right? So here he's saying that Governor Newsom in California, Well, this train is coming through Mexico, and they're going to end up being there. We heard with California about to allow undocumented. So just imagine you between the ages, I think they said 26 and 40 or 29 and 40. You got some ailments and you over in them countries, you get over here, you might get yourself fixed up for free on the state dime. So he's saying that it look like the governor over there just doing some happy talk. It is letting people in. They acting like there's no problem, doing nothing, just a bunch of rhetoric, how things are gonna be great, right? Yeah, think about that, right? I mean, again, we're not anti-immigrant. We're not anti-hating against nobody who can't help themselves. We have to ask ourselves the question: what's the end game here? You know, how many people can you keep taking? And if you're going to keep taking people, where's the funding for it? Because what's kind of being buried is as if like the American people, those of us who are downtrodden, who are on our last leg, who've been evicted, who might be homeless, that seems to be covered. That's like, that don't even, matter of fact, you even hear them talking about they're putting restrictions on a lot of the places where you can go if you are homeless, putting it to the amount of days you can stay. Wait a minute. You know, so is there something manifesting itself? Is there something taking place? Is this a movie? Because like I said, like you showed on the screen there, showing a movie. Like again, people that was with the QAnon talk, right? And they was talking about a lot of stuff, and they was talking about Guantanamo Bay. And matter of fact, isn't today they're supposed to be releasing the list of the Epsteins, right? And they're supposed to be releasing that today, right? So that's why a lot of people talking about movies and and all that stuff. And then remember the Hollywood cut out short, and then the writers went on strike, and then you know what I'm saying. So is there been scripts been written? Is this part of it? Because I'm going to show you something that was done about let's say we were 24. So we're going to say a little less, about 48 years ago. About 48 years? Yeah, about 48 years ago. Something had been written. And I want y'all to, just in case you may not have heard it, I want you to at least know, because you know WeUpReport over here, right? We up. We try to stay up on things. Not like everybody else. Everybody else got their own genre and a conversation, but they want to talk about what's interesting them. That's what we do over here. We talk about some of the things that they talk about in the news. And just because it's in the news, don't make so we know that there's a lot of fakeness in the news, but you know they also got to tell some truth. And it's for you to have discernment to be able to, again, pick the meat from the bone and have discernment as to some of the things that's going down. Now, what's also kind of interesting when you're sitting here talking about how was the trains coming in from Mexico, talking about in California, but then did you see what happened over here? Let's say like in, they were talking about the U.S. Department of Justice said it'll sue if Texas enforces new law punishing illegal border crossing. Let me say that one more again. U.S. Department of Justice says it will sue, or it'll sue, if Texas enforces new laws punishing illegal border crossing. Now listen to this. Texas wants to protect its state, right? And here is the Biden administration, or they saying or the DOJ, they saying, right? Which is the Biden administration, is threatening to sue and stop the new Texas law. So for y'all who don't know, there was the Senate Bill number 4 that they passed over in Texas. And that law allows state police to arrest people suspected of illegally crossing the border. Now, we know when you have that with the police, and now we're talking about, again, stop and frisk, what we say, DWI, driving while black, DWB, or walking while black. We know there can be some discrimination in that. So we understand that there could be some apprehension about people who say that now they'll just be looking, everybody suspecting, you illegal, let me see your papers and so forth. We understand that could be part of it. But the numbers that they keep reporting, now again, whether it's Fox, CNN, and a lot of times, we understand propaganda. We know that some of this stuff, again, could it be a movie? We don't know. We just have to take it from the position that we see, unless we have insight or we have people who are employees and know about what's really going on, whether we have a true accounting of what's going on. So we take what some of the news tells, some of the reports and some of the papers and so forth. And so there is a constant flow, as Joe Biden said in 2014, constant flow, unrelenting, nonstop. That is the secret that keeps America from busing. And yet today, that's what we see on the regular. We see this on the regular. So accordingly, here they are saying that if they implement this new bill that they got Senate Bill 4, they said that it's unconstitutional and it will disrupt the federal government's operation. Now what's the operation here? Again, you heard the individual that was talking about Newsom and talking about them on the train and said gaslighting and see like this is just happy rhetoric and this everything is fine and you're letting everybody come in. Well, it's kind of like what they're saying here, that if you don't allow them to keep coming in, right, you're going to disrupt the federal government's operation, visa immigration and border enforcement, right? Now, this agency, because they're talking about that Governor Greg Abbott over there, right? And he was the one that responded. He said, if Texas does not formally refrain, now this is what they saying to him when they post the letter, say, if Texas does not formally refrain from enforcing the law by January 3rd, well, today the 1st. I seen a story earlier yesterday. They were showing they were already apprehending some of them. But they said that if they don't start refraining from enforcing the law by January 3rd, they will pursue all appropriate legal remedies to ensure that Texas does not interfere with the functions of the federal government. Okay. So there's a conflict of interest here. There's state and there's federal, right? State trying to prohibit. And that's why when you look at Chicago, what's happening in Texas, Texas is saying, well, okay, if you're going to force us to take, then, well, Chicago says they are a sanctuary city. So what are they doing now? They're flying them over there. And so you're seeing Mayor Brandon Johnson, who's a new incumbent mayor, under this situation. They already talking about getting rid of him, but it's something he can't do because why? Again, if you're an avid watcher here over here on WeUpReport, we told you the history of how that sanctuary city got in there with Harold Washington. They used as the proxy to say that he wrote an executive order. But if you know anything about the history about Chicago, through the Podoliak 9 with Harold Washington, he couldn't get nothing passed. It wasn't until he got rid of the Podoliak 9 in them, which was those aldermen that was blocking everything he was doing. And then when he finally got them out and we was going to do a second term, what ended up happening? Harold Washington dies in office, right? So now what's on the books is Harold Washington is the one that initiated the sanctuary city, but it was Rahm Emanuel in 2012 that came in there that did the what? He did the, he made it an ordinance, right? It was Rahm Emanuel who made the ordinance to it, right? So now, with that being said, what you're seeing in Chicago is the influx because what's happening in Texas. But then there's another part of Texas nobody talks about is the fact that Texas and 7 other states had fought against DACA, saying that it was unconstitutional, it was unlawful, and they won in their court. But to prohibit them from enforcing it, they allow them to say, well, okay, Texas, you don't have to. But in the 7 other states, but they're going to allow them to go to the Supreme Court for the 3rd time, which by July, they're going to make the decision. You heard it here. If you didn't already know, that DACA decision will be made in July. And that's going to be another problem because they already know the answer to that, right? So they already know the answer to that. Matter of fact, let me take you over to Chicago to how this is a cause and effects. The cause and effects from Texas that's coming from Mexico. And then here they made Senate Bill 4 to try to prohibit some of that. And now the DOJ say you can't do that because you're prohibiting federal government from doing its job as with immigration. And so Governor Abbott said, well, shit, I'm going to send them over to Chicago. Let's look over and see what's happening in Chicago. Check this out. I'll be right back.
Now is Pastor Corey Brooks, CEO of Project Hood.
Pastor Brooks, how utterly demoralizing it must be for these residents. What's going on? Is he a reflection of the way others are feeling?
Well, he seems to be a reflection of what others are feeling. You know, Chicago is a microcosm of what's going on all across the country. We've been made a sanctuary city, and, you know, typically the citizens would have something to say about that. But here in Chicago, we're not able to practice a true democracy by saying if we want to be a sanctuary city or not. And as a consequence, they're being flooded into our neighborhoods, and lots of funds are being invested into individuals who are not American citizens. And for a lot of people, that seems to be a major problem.
Yeah, speaking of that, here's another Chicago woman who spoke out at the city council meeting. Watch.
I'm not for the sanctuary city. And the reason why I'm not for the sanctuary city is because people have waited years to come in here legally, not just transported on these buses, dropped off in our neighborhoods, raise of crime, almost got hit several times just making it down here today. And this is ludicrous.
Wow, Pastor Brooks, that really resonates with me. My mother is an immigrant, a legal immigrant to this country. Not only did she go through the proper process, but back when she became a legal citizen, the FBI went and talked to her family back in her home country. I mean, that's how much security we had back then compared to now, where they're being vetted within a 24-hour period. I know that for myself because I went down to the border and spoke to people who are doing some of the vetting. And then they get on an airplane and they come to your city. And where's the compassion for the residents in Chicago?
Yeah, you know, most black people have no problem with legal immigration. We're welcoming to our communities. We're welcoming to our neighborhoods. The problem that we're experiencing is the illegal immigration that's going on. The fact that we're a sanctuary city, individuals are taking it upon themselves to fly to Chicago or be bused to Chicago. And as a result of that, a lot of funds that typically, hopefully, would have went to our schools that are deplorable, fighting crime in our neighborhood and in Chicago that desperately needs it. Those funds would have gone toward those issues. But as a result, those funds are being spent on immigrants, illegal immigration, and that just should not be in any city in America.
So that man said, Trump, come here and clean it up. Do you feel, I just need a direct question, you're in touch with a lot of black people in that community. Are other people saying, other black African Americans, are they saying, Trump, come here and clean it up? Do they want Trump over Biden? Are they blaming, are they giving the right people the responsibility for what's happened at our border and what's now happening to your city?
There's no doubt about it that people are blaming Biden, and there's no doubt about it that there should be an uptick, the polls suggest, for Trump, especially amongst black males. A lot of us feel like for far too long, a lot of people in our community have been so loyal to the Democratic Party and it has not paid off, and it is not paying off. And as you know, a lot of individuals believe that they should now consider taking their vote elsewhere. And I believe you're going to see a real uptick in the voting of black males for Donald Trump in the upcoming election.
Very interesting. Pastor Corey Brooks, you do a lot of good work in Chicago. We appreciate you coming in. Now is
all right, so we back, right? So that was Corey Booker there in Chicago. Corey Brooks, I meant to say, Corey Brooks. And he's a pastor. Matter of fact, some of them know in Chicago know about him when he was out there during the winter, raising funds and stuff like that. I think he's going to be the next heir apparent to Jesse Jackson, as Reverend Jackson is probably slowly on his way, at least out of that picture. They got to have somebody, because I think that Father Flager, he's not there, so I think they need him. I think they've been grooming him, so he's in that position. So what you've seen there is in this interview here, they were talking about at a city council meeting where they did back in December 14th. Now, what you see on your screen there, that's who they were talking about. But they let you hear about that sister that was talking, but you didn't hear what he said, right? I'm going to let you hear what he said. Because, see, nobody played what he said. See, he went in there and he do what some of us, again, those of us like myself,
WeUpReport, the most hated show in the black corner of YouTube. You didn't know? Go look and see. Why I'm the only show that can only get 100 views. Been in the business over 10 years, going on 12. And you never heard of me because why I've been suppressed. I did a video back in April 1st of 2014 called The Extinction of the White Race that went over 200 or 300,000. And from that day forth, somebody from the top up said, not that one. He's going nowhere. And they've been true to their word. So if you never heard of me, go ahead, subscribe, like, share. Matter of fact, we also take a little bit of, because again, just imagine as long as I've been doing this. I've been doing this a long time, y'all. I've been doing news over here for a long time. And guess what? Some of our people like what it, some people don't think there's no relevance to it. But again, everybody else have their alternative, their news. Why don't we have ours? So anyway, if you'd like to go ahead and donate to the show, those are the places you can go, right? So anyway, now let's get back to this. Now, that brother that you see on your screen there, that's Mr. Blickman, right? I want you to hear the brother, what he said, and I'm gonna come back on some of the points that he was talking about. Because you heard them, they're mentioning him, they're showing him, but they didn't let you hear what him said. So what we're going to do is we're going to let you hear what him said, and I said him, let you hear what him said as to an elder advocating for his people. So check this out. Let me go ahead and play this for you, and we'll be right back. Listen to this.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is George Blakemore.
Anti-immigrant, illegal, call ICE, send them all back, waiting across the Rio Grande and don't obey our immigration and naturalization laws. And watch my minutes, because you should have it up here and over here, because they steal my minutes. We are the only people in America that was enslaved in America. We are not immigrants. We're not migrants. We belong. Listen. We are the only people enslaved in America. We didn't come over waiting and looking for something. And when we came over, we did work. But it was free labor that built this country. Black labor that built this country. White power. And to see another group come over here, it's disgraceful. It is un-American. And these rules that you have, the rule, who made these rules? When did our ultimate vote for these rules? When did the people have time to participate in making these rules? And one of you all came over to me, Mr. Blakemore, we got little children. What about the black children in the ghetto? We got to make a future for them. These others will move them out. Move us out, and they come in to compete with jobs, goods, and contracts and services. Historian Carl Anderson said that they have a negative effect on the black community. Reading is fundamental. I don't have to love nobody but me. Self-preservation is the first law of nature. And these black ultimates, I urge you to vote no. Because aren't you black? Aren't you black? Don't you live black? Have you experienced the suffering that our people have gone through and still going through it? Having another group to come up in line and get in front of us. You got the right one on this mic. You got the right one, Mr. Blakemore. We got children here. Now you be respectful. I am respectful, and I'm advocating for the black children, because you all trying to gentrify us out and you in for jobs, goods, contracts, and services. Who do you think I am, or who are you? Who, if they clap, I can say boo. If they clap again, I can say boo. I'm strictly advocating for black people and call ICE on them. Trump, come in here, clean this mess up. The most corrupt city in the United States is the city of Chicago. And that's not my...
Thank you, Mr. Blakemore, for your comments.
All right. So that was Mr. Blakemore, right? And that's what he was saying. Now, that's the part they did not play in that report. They referenced him, but they didn't play or let you hear. Why is that? Why is it that when we start talking about the plight of Black Americans, when we start talking about our history, why is it like everybody get deaf ears? People don't want to hear it. Oh, get over it. Because the truth is being stated. And in that truth, he said he don't have to love nobody, self-preservation, and he's advocating for his people. Now, everybody like to tell us that, you know, the utopian, everybody love everybody, but it's more of it's Black conversation. We're the ones that's more sickened with, we tell everybody we love everybody, right? We don't have to always profess, I'm not racist. I don't hate nobody. Other people don't say nothing. They just do what they do. Now, they have their conclaves, they have their communities. And do they really patronize even if you have stores? Do they hire you in their stores? So when these other people who benefit off of immigration, and again, when you really look at it, they done made this country to be an immigrant nation. And as you heard Mr. Blakemore say, Black people are the only people who are not immigrants. Now, there's some of us who have the story that we believe that we came on boats. And then there's some of us who know that we are the Indigenous Americans and so forth and all that. But primarily, everybody is a given that way that everybody look at us. They have to, because I noticed that there's shows on the Black corner of the internet that are people who are, again, I'm not anti-immigrant, but these people have a, you know, immigrant background, and they're having discussions whether people who are Black Americans with, you know, long lineage in this land, trying to get them to have affirmation that they're Africans. Why are these people so gun-ho on trying to make you an African, right? Wait, it's one thing to know that where your people came from in your lineage, but you in here trying to get us to confess, because again, when you know the history and when you go back and you talk about, let's say like Dred Scott, the thing that made Dred Scott was the fact that he affirmed that his people were Africans. And in the courts, it says an African can't get nothing here. So that's why they're always trying to put us on the label with African. That's why in 90s, they came with the African American, right? It was Barack Obama that came in and changed the Negro status, right? That was saying, again, really the Asian lady that was from, I think, San Francisco, she put in saying they wanted to change what's the term they say they were calling them? Oriental. She put in for Oriental, then Obama put in remove Negro, right? And I got a message. Let me see if this message is real quick. I got a message here. Leonard the U is laughing at me, right? All right. Well, what's good, Leonard the U? And so it was Obama that came in and changed the Negro off our status. Now you got to remember, historically, African American is going to be a particular time. Black is going to be a particular time. Negro, color, all these are in our history. Historically, are different times of different of our peoples. So if you remove any, you're actually extricating part of our history, right? So here's an individual or elder who understands that what's going on, that with the immigration and the effects it was going to have on those who are coming up. Now, again, if you're an avid watcher here over here, we done told you, think about it. Minimum wage done went up just about all across this country. And yet, as I'm going to show you moving forward, by a lot of them not being able to obtain and get some employment, what is that going to cause? And are they being undermined by people who are seeking, as they say, asylum seeking? And a lot of that It's not even, it's going to take them 10 years to even figure that out. So they done found a loophole in that. So they can be here for 10 years. So that means that the migration or the immigration, illegal immigration, is going to have effects on the local voting. And that means, like Chicago, the district maps will change according to they will be counting these new numbers as these people. And so those districts that were primarily black, like they got a 16 to 14 map, in 10 years, Chicago won't be dominant black. It's going to change. And so that means the shift of the power will change. And so here's Blackmore understanding that and realizing that the children of the future won't have no future, because it look like it's kind of like when you look at the futuristic movies. You don't see no niggas in the space. Let me say that one more again. Ain't no niggas in space other than LeVar Burton, which was Kunta Kinte, but he had to be blind. You get what I'm saying? Anyway, so let me show y'all something. Let me just move on there. So he was advocating on that, but they didn't want to show that because of why? People don't want to hear about the history when it comes to Black Americans, Indigenous Americans, the Tatchas, Niji, Aboriginal Americans. Nobody wants to hear that because why? Does it put a guilt on people who know when you came from somewhere else and that you have been infringing and you've been the buffer that's keeping this particular people at bay? Is that why everybody? Because to me, these people that's in this corner who in there trying to make us to be Africans are kind of like the 21st century American colonization society. You have to ask them, where did that go? It didn't just disappear. It kind of maybe went into Pan-Africanism. You get what I'm saying? Again, I'm not anti-African. I'm not saying that it's possible. I haven't found in my family through my genealogy, I haven't found it. If you have, that's the story. Matter of fact, since I'm talking about that, let me show y'all something. Because see, he mentioned that too. Mr. Blakemore said that we were the only ones who were brought here under our will. Now, those of you who might be Gen X or older, prior to 77, did you know anything about slavery? Be honest. Because I know a lot of people try to say they teach slavery in school. They never. That's why there is no real definitive story about slave trade and slavery. There's a 1619 story, but did they really teach you that in school? So I had to ask the question, when did you get that then? When did you get that? When was it this? Right? Because it seems like this is how it really go down, right? Right? Let me take, anyone know what the name of this is? Remember that, y'all? Anybody know what the name of this? I know what that is. That's Africa. I know that. Right? Remember that? Let me take it down. They say the first man was found there. Now, is that why everybody be giving us Africa? Because they that, right? He said, my daddy said that's where all people originate. Right? And my daddy said, everybody, all y'all. That's in everybody nigga head. All y'all from Africa. All y'all, right? But I'm not from Africa. I'm from Crenshaw Mafia. That's like them say, I'm from here. My people from here. And what he said, like it or not, you African. That's what they telling us. People enforcing that on us. And if we don't take it, punk out, cheek your ass. They want to fight us because we don't want to be something, because you know who you are, but you're going to make me be what you need me to be. And he squared up with them. Why? That's how they do us. They square up with us because we got to be something because you something. Because everybody that's from here, from somewhere else, need nobody to be here originally, because then why? You know you're guilty because you're imposing, and on the people that should be getting, everybody eating over them. So to make us African, make us all immigrants. So y'all would go along with the most lioness people in the world. Y'all believe everything they say. Y'all believe their DNA. You believe every story they tell you. And then you don't even dawn on you how they did all that. How did they do all that at that particular time? But you believe that. You landlocked, you'll say you're the original man on the planet, but you only landlocked in one damn place. 2024, we still got to have that conversation, right? I got a comment here. Limited you to say, I ain't no damn African then. African. Yeah, this ain't about hating no African, y'all. And some people gonna say we have some kind of identity crisis. Most of the people who try to argue with you know they from somewhere else. They know their parents is from somewhere, which means you lineage from somewhere else. But when it come to us and we saying grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, great-great-great-great-grandparents, great-great-great, when we start saying that, we don't got no paperwork saying our people came here. So y'all run to the story to try to give a legitimate to that. And it's crazy. So Mr. Blakemore did what he had to do, right? He said that nobody really wants to address it because why? Oh, he's just old man. He's angry, right? And these people here coming here to get something. They don't care about you. And as he say, move them in and move us out, right? Move them in and move us. I got another comment real quick. And I'm gonna get back to what I was doing. Aboriginal saying me neither, right? But they don't want to believe that. They will argue us just like they did in Boys in the Hood when he got up there taught in the classroom. My man said he Crenshaw Mafia. My daddy said, can your daddy be wrong? Can those who saying this, can you be wrong? What makes it definite that y'all right? Because they said they found Bone Lucy in Africa and you just know it's you? You know how slick that mug is. You know he's slick. But y'all believe him. Y'all want to believe him. Because he got you so hating so much here that you want to be anywhere else but here. And all your ancestry, all your lineage is in this ground more than if you take your ass over to the continent. That ain't hating them. You know how far, let's say, if you're trying to connect me to the original person that you say on that boat story, you know how many people it took from that person to me? And all of them ain't going to connect to the same place, but all they're going to do is generalize and say, West Coast Africa. And y'all run with it. West Coast Africa. Of course, the narrative had to fit his damn story. Oh, it's science. Science can't lie. Science didn't tell you that DNA, that melanin was junk DNA in the beginning. Did they not tell you that melanin was junk DNA? They didn't lie then. Oh, now the property that they done studied it now, right? Come on, man, stop it, right? Leonard DeYuta says carbon dating is a theory. It's not true science as it is portrayed. I'm just saying. I can give you a math equation, right? And not give you all the equation and tell you to try to answer. And you can give an answer that I'm going to accept as true, but I didn't even give you the whole equation. And a lot of you run with it because why you program, school taught me that. As if you don't understand that the origin of the school and what the school is, and it has a curriculum, and then come on, man. I don't get it, man. I don't understand how people can believe people who lied about everything, and then all of a sudden they telling you the truth about something that benefits you. Anyway, let me move on. Let me get off that. So anyway, let me show you what I'm going to say. So many of us, we didn't know nothing about that until this came up. Huh? When that came up, you knew. In 77. And then they came back and asked yourself, based on what they know, why did they come back in 2016 with a new one? When they knew that what happened in 1977, the truth of it was a lie. So why did they come back in 2016 with a new version? To reinforce something, right? Came back to reinforce it. Y'all want to go with it because you want to believe them to be true. You want that to be true so bad. You want it to be so true. Matter of fact, let me let you hear his words of how he said he came up with it. And then I'm going to show you something. Listen to this. Be right back.
A book for which I had an idea, and into which I had invested a lot of time, years, more than I should have. So at that time, my concern was not impact, it was finish this book. That's what it was.
What was your motivation? You had heard stories from your elders.
From my grandmother and her sisters. And it was, my motivation at first was curiosity.
How old were you when it sort of struck you that you ought to document this and do some research?
Probably close to 40. And I had heard the stories, the initial stories, when I was 6, 7, 8 years old. But I heard them at the same time that I heard biblical parables. When I grew up, I guess when I was about 11 years old, my head in story terms would have been a jumble of David and Goliath and Chicken George and Miss Kizzy and Moses. It was all mixed up in there. But it was, as I say, probably 40 years later. I'd been 20 years in the U.S. Coast Guard. I had begun trying to write and finally had been successful in writing some things. And then I'd gotten to a point where after I wrote my first book, the autobiography of Malcolm X, I began to hear, it was then in the 60s, and there was, civil rights. And I began to hear, the Africa, black people, this, that, the other. And it sort of took me back to thinking about the first time I ever heard about Africa was that African in the stories my grandmother and her sisters told in the family. An African who lived in Spotsylvania County, Virginia, and was the buggy driver for his massa, as they called it, who was a medical doctor named Dr. William Waller in Spotsylvania County, Virginia. And that sort of, it aroused a curiosity. And one day I went to the archives of the United States in Washington, and I found on microfilm the same family my grandmother and her sisters had talked about. And it wasn't that I hadn't believed my grandma, because you did not believe my grandma, but there was something about the further dimension of finding documentation of what she had said in the U.S. archives on microfilm that gave me, it sort of revved me up, curiosity.
And so with that, you were able to document back to Africa.
Not just that, no. I mean, there was another 9 years of research before I went back to Africa. But I'm saying that was the start there. Yeah, that was the start.
And you actually were able to go back to the very village or community?
To the very village, the village of Jufere, Gambia, West Africa.
Is that the problem, though? I mean, is that part of the reason why a lot of blacks, as you mentioned, don't even know a lot about their own history, because there's sort of this cutoff?
No, I wouldn't say that. The problems come before you even get to Africa. Problems very often come. Let me ask you, how much do you know about your family? You black. Do you know much about your family?
I'll admit I know very little. I hear stories from my grandmother.
Is your grandmother living?
She is.
Well, now let me tell you something. You don't have anything in this world more important to do than after you finish this show, you get your way to your grandma and talk to her. You see, in your grandmother's head, in her memory, are things that if you let her pass and you haven't gotten it, it'll be absolutely impossible for you ever to get it about your family. And if it is not important to you, it's most important to your children. And the only source you've got in this world is your grandmother's memory. So it's most important. So you have answered your own question.
Yeah.
Is that too many have not done that with the grandmother?
Okay. All right, so we back, right? So that was Alex Haley, right? An interview that he said how he got into knowing about his family. You heard him say it, right? It was his grandmother and her sisters told him about a story, right? That's where he got his African story from, right? Now you heard him what he said. Now we're gonna listen to what he said, and then we're gonna see about what was said, right? So he was about 11 years old. What he said, he had Bible stories in his mind as well as Chicken George, and right? So he had a mixture of those two in his head. Those are kind of the stories he had in his head at 11 years old. Then it was after the fact that when he wrote the biography of Malcolm X, right? Many of us read the book of Malcolm X. A lot of us at that turned on to that because of that biography that he wrote about Malcolm X. And a lot of people, that's how they learned about Malcolm X, right? So we have to ask ourselves, when you get that hit, it's like somebody who does videos. And when I did that 300,000, I stopped pumping more videos. I got 50,000 and so forth. And because I was on a roll, right? I got in the algorithm. So we have to ask ourselves, he said that this is around the 60s. It's around the civil rights movement, around the black movement was happening. When he started hearing Africa and black people. Now, wait a minute. Yeah, in his family said it was African, but what was black people calling themselves? So why was that strange, Africa and black people at that time of the 60s, right? But then he remember the story that was told by his grandmother, right? So what did he do? He went to the archives in Washington and he went and found his families through some of the microfilms he said, right? That was what he said, right? And then that the fact that he found the documentation that what his grandmother had said, it wasn't the fact that he questioned her, it was the fact that he said he was able to documentize the things they had said. And what he did is he said he was able to trace it to Gambia, West Africa, right? Did you not hear him say that, right? And then he heard the stories from his grandmother about in Virginia of his ancestor being the driver for the Dr. Waller, right? You heard him say all these things, right? Now, I got a message. Let me get this message right quick. Okay. Leonard DeYuta says, he clearly lying. Why does he keep looking to the left? Okay. I'm gonna just put it like this. It's not what I'm saying. I'm just gonna put out what was there. Because again, in 1977, I don't know how old you were, or some of you weren't even alive. Many people, at least Gen X, let's say Gen X would have been at least, let's say, somewhere between the oldest Gen X probably would have been about 12. And so that means 12 to about, let's say if you watch a TV, let's say if you probably was 7 years old. So between 7 and 12, Gen X was there. A lot of Gen Xers was there during that time and got indoctrinated with roots, right? Prior to that, nobody was talking about that. Now, again, there is New York, and New York might be different because they had what? The Pan-African movement. They have, you know what I'm saying? So in New York, it might be a little bit different, but we're going to talk about other places outside of New York. So unless directly, if your family member is directly, like some of y'all know your daddy is African, your mama is African, your granddaddy is African. Y'all know that. We're talking about people who can go back, mama, daddy, Black American, granddaddy on mama, daddy side, both of them, we're talking about that. When you just keep going back and they from here. Right? So we have to ask ourselves the question. Since he had the biography, I couldn't find, and I've been searching for, I just kind of wonder, was he paid? If he made the book in 76, how did he have a damn TV movie series in 77 that damn quick? Let me say that one more again. If he wrote the book in 76, Roots, the book, they had a series in 77. We watching in 77. Okay. Now listen to this. Okay, I got another comment. Hold on. I want y'all to see this now. What it do, family? Much respect to you and keep doing what you're doing. Big Job Bankroll. What's good, sir? Glad to see you stop by. Try to keep doing it, man. I try to do this as long as I can. That's why once in a while when you see me throw that up there, I'm not begging. I got family. We don't eat. And I've been doing this for 12 years. They won't let me eat. You understand? They keep me the most suppressed show that you can find. When everybody talk about all that, talking about they show suppressed, I'm the king. I know about all that. I'm way at the bottom, but I've been in the game longer than I've seen a lot of y'all come in. So I appreciate comments like yours and y'all who in here, where you hit the like button or not. I appreciate that. A lot of people have thought I'd have quit by now. I think they thought I was going to quit by now. But sometimes it ain't about how many, it's the fact that you do what you do. And I'm just doing this because somebody need to do it. But I got some other stuff on the show. And again, I appreciate your comment and to go those who want to contribute. Now, so like I say, by Gen X, we seeing this, and then think about it. In 2016, why did they redo it again when they know damn well this happened? Huh? Why would you come with a repeat of a show that it was a plagiarized story, but yet you heard what the man just said that told you of his family? So why would you need to plagiarize a story when you got a story? Let me say that one more again. Why would you need to plagiarize a story when you already got your story? Matter of fact, listen to what he says right here and be right back.
I was trying to get into a character, you know, to feel that character so much that in effect you become the character. And what it was, I was at the time living in San Francisco, and I was trying to write that part about this boy, 16, down in the hold of a slave ship with 139 other people, because the ship's cargo was 140 she left Africa with. And I would write 30, 40 pages, and out it went. It just didn't grip. And you, a writer, know that before anybody else. You know it isn't right. And finally I realized I had no right, really, to be up in some high-rise carpeted apartment trying to write about him in that slave ship hold. So I flew to Africa, and I was able finally to book passage on a freighter coming from Liberia to the United States. And I got on it, and I made arrangements sort of that I could, after dinner each evening, I would go down in the second hold of the ship. And, you know, I don't know if you've been in freighters much. I was 20 years in the Coast Guard. I know, you know, a good deal about ships. But the holds of ships are deep, dark, cavernous, cold. And down in there, the cargo was bales of raw rubber. And I found a big, rough timber they used to put between the cargo to keep it from shifting in rough seas. And I would go down there and take off my clothing to my underwear and lie down on the plank on my back. And I would make myself stay there all night until in the morning I could hear footsteps on the steel deck overhead. And I did that crossing, and it was an effort to try and psych myself or put myself into some circumstance in which I could feel that I was he. And I could, you know, sort of work the five senses thing. What did he hear? What did he think? What did he see, smell, so forth? And that was how finally I was able to write that section of the book Roots, which covers the crossing of the ocean.
I read a piece, and it, as I said, it's a gripping piece of writing. But I read somewhere, it's not in the book, an interview with you or something, that in trying to recreate that, you got suicidal.
Yeah, well, I did, actually. I'll tell you what happened. It was about the fourth night out on the sea. And instead of going that night directly into the hold, for some reason I decided to go out on the fantail, the stern of the ship. And I went back there, it was just dark. And I remember putting my foot up on the bottom rail, my hands on the top rail, and kind of looking back at where the sun recently had sunk. And it just seemed all my troubles rolled in on me. And I had a lot of trouble. I owed everybody I knew that would lend me anything. I was so far beyond deadline, it was terrible. Worse than that really was the whole psychic trauma of trying to recreate what it was like in that ship hold. And I remember I had this sensation that came to me that there was a way to solve it all, and that was simply all I had to do was step through that rail and drop in the sea. And it wasn't any big horror thing. I didn't feel that at all. I felt almost triumphant. You felt almost something like, yeah, that'll fix them, all of them. You know, no problems anywhere. And I knew it was kind of private. It wasn't like shooting yourself. It was just drop in the sea. And nobody would know you even gone until morning. And then I had this very unusual psychic thing, at least unusual in my experiences. I began to hear voices, and it was, again, no big thing. It was rather as we might in a dream hear voices. And they were, I knew exactly who they were. They were my various ancestors, and so it seemed very convincingly. And they were saying things like, no, don't do that. You must go on. You must finish, so forth. And I finally just sort of tore myself away from the rail and got back in my stateroom, and that was one night. I am a man, but I just went into paroxysms of tears. And finally that night, I guess it was about midnight, I went back down in the hole, and that was the night I began to feel that I really could write that section of the book Roots.
Bullshit. Okay, we're back, right? Huh? Now you heard Alex Haley just sit there. You done heard 2 interviews. You done heard what he said. He said to get into the characters. He went, found the freight, stayed in the freight, wondered what it would be to be 16 years old, took his clothes off, slept in there overnight, got to the point where he got into a spiritual frenzy that he got suicidal, where he was going to get off he seen the back of the deck of the ship, and his ancestors came to him and told him, don't do it. Right? You heard all that, right? Now, I can't say whether that happened or not. I can't say that. I cannot say that, right? But I swore he said earlier that his grandmama and sisters, his grandmama and her sisters and them told him when he was a little boy, when he was 6, about his ancestor. He said he went to the archive and found the film that documented what grandma and sister, grandma's sister and them had talked about. So I don't know how he got to saying Gambia and the characters that he claimed that he made based on him being in this freight created the characters. But yet, as you see on your screen there, showing you that Alex Haley has settled a lawsuit by acknowledging that his world-renowned book, Roots, said contains some material from a relatively unknown novel about slavery that was published 9 years earlier. The settlement ended 6-week trial as the suit by Harold Corlander, a 70-year-old author from the Bethesda, Maryland, who contended that there were substantial similarities between Roots and his own earlier novel called The African. The African. He sued in federal district court in Manhattan for more than half of the profits of Roots. As the trial was about to reach its climax, were summations by the opposing lawyers. They issued the following statement. The suit had been amicably settled out of court. Alex Haley acknowledges and regrets that various materials from The African by Harold Corlander found their way into his book Roots. Under the agreement to settle, the amount of money that will be paid by Mr. Corlander and his publisher Crown was not disclosed, but the nature of the case made it seem likely that the amount would be hundreds of thousands of dollars. The defendant in the suit were Mr. Haley and his publisher Doubleday and Dale. The American, now check this out, the American Broadcasting Company, which televised Roots, was dropped as a defendant by mutual agreement earlier in the trial. Why did they drop ABC? Now wait a minute. Why did ABC get to keep and not get sued? That did the damage. That pushed the propaganda. But it didn't have to get sued. It didn't get sued. Roots rapidly became enormously successful after it was published in 1976. It won a Pulitzer Prize, sold millions of copies, and produced a series of television programs that exerted a powerful impact throughout the country. Powerful impact, boom, like a cannon, blowing people's mind. Just imagine, huh? That's African. From that time forward, now you were an African. Now you knew about the slave trade. Prior to then, you knew nothing. You had no knowledge of, nobody in your family talked about that. Roots did it. Did they pay him for that? The African sold 14,000 copies in hardcover and 130,000 in paperback during several years after its publication in 1967. So the white cat, Corlander, who had a book called The African, somehow information from his book, and matter of fact, there was also another sister who had her family story that somehow her story got in Roots too, but they didn't give her no money. See? So we have people today, it's kind of like the American Colonization Society, like it was back there when you talk about, let's say, Paul Kufi, worked for the American Colonization Society. It's possible, very possible, that Marcus Garvey worked for the American Colonization Society. He made some deals. Matter of fact, when you look at that picture, you see Marcus Garvey with the individual who was the president of the American Colonization Society, that white man. Go find that picture. We see Marcus Garvey sitting there when he got on that robe. That's the cat for the American Colonization Society when Marcus Garvey talking about back to Africa. So today, who pushing it today? Who pushing it hard today? You get what I'm saying? So they've been doing that, man. They've been doing that to us real hard, real hard. Matter of fact, I ain't gonna go no further on that one. We're gonna let that be what it is, right? But that's where we got that African from. Unless in your family somebody told you directly and you knew that, if you didn't have that in your story, you didn't have that. Yes, they did have slave movies where they would use Cicely Tyson and stuff, right? We seen all them stuff, right? We seen what was that? What was that one? That one they did Cabin. Was it something Cabin? Huh? Y'all know that one with the cabin? But it was a kind of a French one, and they had it was real. Oh man, I know it because I own it. I just can't think of it. But anyway, but we had those movies, right? Now let me show you something as how most of our stories kind of have the same feeling when we go back, that a lot of us is doing our research and finding out that our family owned land. Did y'all hear about this story here? Let me show y'all this real quick. Did y'all hear this story here? Farrell's Capital co-founder Neelan Youngblood pursuing $900 million claim against ConocoPhillips for right to land. Say that one more again. Farrell's Capital co-founder Neelan Youngblood pursuing $900 million claim against ConocoPhillips for right to land. Now, let me show y'all something here, right? See, let me show that brother right there on this screen right there, right? That's the brother there. That's Neelan Youngblood, right? Let me show you about Neelan Youngblood, y'all. Let me show y'all something right quick. Now, Neelan Youngblood's family goes back. Now, it's a real big story. You're gonna be hearing about it because look, you're talking about $900 million, y'all. That's a lot of money, huh? And what it is about a white family and a black family who both were on land and they had titles to the land. I don't know if you heard about it. You might have heard a little bit about it, but you know, over here, WeUpReport, we're going to give you the whole story, right? You pay for the cost of your admission over here. We're not lazy like some people around here. We're going to do the work. Hey, but I don't hold nobody's hand. You got to do your own research. Well, just in case, I just want to spark to make you go even further with it, right? That's what I do for my show. You can take it or leave it alone. That's on you, right? So let me Hold on one quick second here. Pull my story up here. I got it right here. And so here it goes, right? So it's talking about a Dallas-based Sparrow Capital Group. The co-founder is Neelan Youngblood. He's fighting a legal battle against a company that claims to own his family's land. Okay, the Dallas-based Sparrow Capital Group. Again, his name is Neelan Youngblood. He's engaged in a legal battle, which is to safeguard his family's heritage, according to a Wall Street Journal. Youngblood and his family are pursuing a lawsuit seeking $900 million from ConocoPhillips, a crude oil producer. If it goes to a verdict, he believes they think they will get a lot more. So they don't want it to put it in the hands of the judge. They want the verdict to come through a jury. So the lawsuit alleges that ConocoPhillips has unfairly denied the Youngblood family the benefits of their oil-rich land in Texas, originally owned by the Eckfords. Now, Eckfords, I'm going to give you that history about the Eckfords because that's the history, how it ties into him, who gained ownership over a post-Civil War. Now, remember Civil War, because we're going to talk about that too because of that Nikki Haley, right? So Civil War freedom from slavery, the complexity arose when another family claimed the land after the Eckford family passing. Legal experts in the energy sector are skeptical about the Youngblood's chances of success in court. Of course they is, because they don't want to give his family $900 million, right? We know that, right? So let me give you, okay, so the Youngblood, again, this individual that you see on your screen, he's a graduate from Princeton University back in 1978. He earned an MD degree from the University of Texas, Southwestern Medical School in 1982. He's also a member. Now, some people may say he's a member of the Council of Foreign Relations. Now, those of you who've been around a little bit, you know, the CFR, right? Right, Council of Foreign Relations, right? We know Spearcy and all that stuff. So he a member of that. So, right? And also, he also got some other connection. We're talking about Democrat. So we just kind of wondered that they put this out here. But, you know, we're going to give honor that because some of us can relate because his tie is going to be like a lot of our ties. As we delve more into our family genealogies and histories and finding out of properties that have been taken and stolen, we too may also be in situations like this as time goes on. So anyway, moving forward more, you also find the fact that he's been the director of Starwood Hotel, Burger King, Gaffe Corporation. He's been a teacher retirement system of Texas. He's been the director of the U.S. Enrichment Corporation. He's been a director at the Light and Wonderful Corporation. He's been on the board of the Black Economic Alliance, California Institute of Technology, Core Scientific Incorporation, and the Prostate Cancer Foundation. So this brother here is a brother who is not a regular brother, right? This brother been around. This brother is into things, right? He's you know, well connected in some sense. Matter of fact, I think he's in that Texas golf course up there that had been. Remember, y'all, I don't know if y'all seen on X where Tiger Woods kept talking about how a lot of those places he couldn't actually go inside, and then he would say, well, he said, where's the first tee at and what's the highest score? And he would go out there and smash the record, being pissed off about how they were treating him, right? He talking now, but at the time he said nothing, right? But we kind of expect that, right? So let me give you this Eckford story. Let me give you, so just in case somebody might be interested, some of you may not be interested, but that's what we do here. We give you that, the family legacy of that whole story. Let me tell you this legacy of this story because it's very interesting. I'm pretty sure as time go on, you're going to hear about this. Again, we're talking about $900 million. That's not small. And the thing is, will they get it all and the white family not get what they think they're supposed to get, right? So they talking about this is 147.5 acres to be exact. Let me say that one again. 147.5 acres. Huh? And this is between two families, a black one and a white one. Okay? Now they said for over 100 years, each family held half interest in the property, what they call in the northeast Karnes County. One family stayed on, the other vanished from it, scattering across Texas and beyond. The succeeding generations, often unaware they own a share in what they call the scrub-studded parcel. The past 15 years, oil and gas riches have made the land valuable. Descendants of the two families must now reckon with their desperate fortunes found or lost since the ancestors crossed paths. Unraveling the knots that bind together century-old family matters, the business deals, the racial oppression that often determined who was allowed to prosper. One side of they call them the courts, Korths. That's the name of the white family. There's a white family who they call themselves to be pioneers of the area. They're fighting for full ownership. See, they don't want to share. They ain't talking about sharing. They want all. They want half. They want all, right? So here it is that they believe that they belong, all of it is theirs. The other side are the experts, okay? Hundreds of descendants, formerly enslaved couples, trying to reclaim their stake in land. She lost links to their inheritance, hoping to share in the royalty payouts that could be worth millions of dollars, okay? So the exports are the black family. The courts are the white family. The courts who stayed on there based on the simple fact when you had Jim Crow and everything else, the exports were pushed out because of that. And they were able to remain. Later on, as time went on, they come to find out oil and gas is up under there, and they paying out big in them royalties. And guess what? The expert family still had documents that they still owned, okay? So the heart of this Eagle Fort shell surround how these acres of scrub and richlands pass from one family to the other. Now, it was during the time they want to say overt racism, right? When it was just open in our face, hey, nigger, right? All that, right? Didn't your damn face. We're no none of hiding, right? Or some days we still see it, but you see some kind of reactions too, right? But when it was that way, right? And so they said the insanity trial that clouded deeds of trust. So somebody got labeled as insane, which did something with this trust. And then there was the sale of the estate. Now all this stuff is under scrutiny. The courts determined whether the courts effectively divested the experts of their half interest over more than 7 decades. So that's 70 years ago, right? So we know that. We know how that goes. So like, again, we as American Indigenous, Aboriginals, Indigenous, Niji, Moors, Black Americans, a lot of us can relate as we're going more and starting to go back and look at our ancestors and look at things, we're going to find these same things too. I got a message. Let me see what this message is here. Gregory Van Leer just caught the live. My brother, what's good? Happy New Year's to you, Mr. Van Leer. What's good, brother? Glad to see you stop by. So as I was saying here, we have, again, like I said, we're going to have in our families where we may find out that some of these corporations have stole and got mineral rights, and we might be going through the same thing. So that's kind of one reason why I want to bring this story as I relate more as to other stuff as to what the topic of today's show. But I thought this is very interesting for us to know. So here's a story of land dispute about the legacy of one family wanting to hold on to the investments of generations and another seeking justice over what has been missing since the days of Jim Crow. They said none of it would have happened if Shell had played or bought oil grants or giants and the hungry interest to town. So they want to blame it on that this problem came from Shell, who decided to come to town seeking oil, and they the one that stirred up this mess. Well, not technically, even if it wasn't Shell, the fact that the experts still had half interest in the land and property that they got ran out because of, again, as you say, overt racism. They were entitled to be there. They were entitled to be there. So we're not going to blame Shell, but because now the interest has doubled and tripled and there's now royalties to be paid, why with that being said, why do they want all of it instead of saying, let's split it? Let's be fair. They want all or nothing, right? So it's kind of funny how some people, again, as I talked earlier about immigrants coming here, you seeking for a better life, but you are also infringing on the people who already are people who've been redlined, disenfranchised, right? And a lot of shit is through legislation and government that a lot of people don't want to admit. But we will touch on that as we go on more. Yeah. So let me finish up with this here. So again, they want to blame them, and that now the question becomes, who's the rightful owner of the 147.5 acres of land, right? So now there goes to that. They want to put a blame somewhere else instead of the fact that they had parts. So now they say the past 15 years, oil and gas have made a land valuable. Descendants of the family reckoned with the desperate tunes of found or lost since the ancestors crossed paths. So they said this is how the land arrived. They said that Eagle Forest Shell, Karnes Country Community newspaper, had put a classified ad in the section back in 2009. And what it said is, have you been contacted by an oil and gas land recently? And that the fact that the point that readers they had pointed the people to a website, landowners would post their sort of leases and offers on the table. And if they were lucky enough to own property within the 26 county swath over the geographical formation of the rich oil land of the natural gas, then you had an opportunity to get some of this land. So they said if they wouldn't have put it in the paper and made it so known, the black people wouldn't have known about it. So they want to kind of blame them a little bit, right? So it was during this nation's, they said this is the nation's second largest shale field, covering nearly 20,000 square miles, stretching northeast from Laredo, took off in 2010, transformed to Karnes County, ranching and farming the county into an oil and gas powerhouse with well pads scattered throughout the brush and grassland, okay? They going to this is a real big story, y'all. And the possibilities, I'm going to do an update on it. I don't really want to go all into because I think did I show y'all on the screen? Because you can go look at this article. It's big as shit. It's really big. And I don't mind doing it, but I'm already at the 2-hour mark. And I don't want to make this a 4-hour video. Not that I have a problem with it. But the thing I'm saying is, it goes into this long story of how they got on the plantation, how that family got their share, how they got their heritage, how they got ran out. And now, by coincidence, a brother who is well-endowed, educated, well-connected is tied to it, and they're asking for $900 million. And they still have all their documentation and everything. You will hear about this. If you ain't heard about it before, you heard it now. You will hear about this. That's a lot. That's almost $1 billion. And you're talking about, again, Black Americans attached to Indigenous Moors, and what could be some things that may come down the pipe where many of us, as we start to shuffle through our paperwork and find out some of them hidden things and lands and deeds and stuff that have been stolen from us. So now, with that being said, as they were talking about here about how they took those lands, or they've been back there since the Civil War. Did y'all see that whole thing they tried to make this big ordeal about when they was talking about, I got it right here. When they try to make this big whoop-to-do about what has said with Nikki Haley. Now, remember,
as the show is about what? Strategies of, go back, what's our title again? Hold on, I'm seeing so much here, right? Hold on. Our title for the show today is, go back there, because I think you misspelled that, right? You misspelled that, right? Strategies of plausible deniability, right? So again, the Muslims burn both sides of the damn bridge and can't come to you, right? So they need something to talk, so they can have some way to try to talk to you without talking to you. Well, let me show it to them. Now, check this out, what I seen. Be right back. Let's look at this.
Sure. During a campaign stop, Republican presidential candidate, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, was asked this question by an audience member. Quote, what was the cause of the Civil War? This is how Governor Haley responded.
What was the cause of the United States Civil War?
Well, don't come with an easy question or anything. I mean, I think the cause of the Civil War was basically how government was going to run, the freedoms and what people could and couldn't do. What do you think the cause of the Civil War was? I'm sorry?
I'm not running for president. I wanted to see your
That's a good thing.
On the cause of the Civil War.
I mean, I think it always comes down to the role of government and what the rights of the people are. And I will always stand by the fact that I think government was intended to secure the rights and freedoms of the people. It was never meant to be all things to all people. Government doesn't need to tell you how to live your life. They don't need to tell you what you can and can't do. They don't need to be a part of your life. They need to make sure that you have freedom. We need to have capitalism. We need to have economic freedom. We need to make sure that we do all things so that individuals have the liberties so that they can have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to do or be anything they want to be without government getting in the way.
Thank you. And in the year 2023, it's astonishing to me that you answer that question without mentioning the word slavery.
What do you want me to say about slavery?
No, you answered my question. Thank you.
Next question.
So, Eugene, we can pick through that a million different ways. Perhaps the follow-up question where she says, what do you want me to say about slavery? Is what stuck with most people as they watch that, a commentary on Governor Haley perhaps, but also about the state of the Republican Party. And as you watch the gears turning there, what she should and should not say in order to keep her support.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And if you watch the crowd as things were going downhill, you could start to see people kind of get a little squeamish as she was answering those questions. You know, my family's always been from South Carolina, so I am very, very well versed on the conversation that happens. I was just there earlier this week for Christmas. I'm very well versed in the conversation that happens versus, you know, whether it was states' rights or slavery, what was the real conversation. So she's showing that, right, that she's a product of that conversation. This is also something in line with what she said before when asked when running for governor in 2010 about slavery or about the cause of the Civil War. Obviously, it was about slavery. If it was about states' rights, it was the state's ability to hold slaves. If it was about freedoms and what the government could tell you what to do, it was whether or not the government could tell you whether or not you can own and beat people, rape and kill them because they were your property, right? That is clear to everyone who has eyes and has read history books. But what she is showing is the fact that in the Republican Party right now, there is not a lot of room for folks who would say something like that, who would be honest about slavery as the cause and the main cause of the Civil War. You know, you think about the last few years and what the Republican Party has focused on, the conversation about race in this country, their attacking of critical race theory. So there's almost no other answer that she could give in this Republican primary that wouldn't, you know, take some votes away from her as she is moving forward. I will say I got some texts from some of the staffers on the other campaigns of this exact message when it happened. But then when I asked them how their candidate would answer, they got a little pissed off at me and said, you would never ask them that question. And so it tells you that while they want this to knock her, they don't want to answer the question either.
Jen.
All right, so we back, right? So now again, that kind of went through, was a trigger word that set people off, got people activated, generated some kind of, frenzy, provoked some people, got people sparked off, set in motion, gave rise to, gave some illicit, right? So here was this, we got something we can talk about, Joe. We got something we can talk about. She get a gaff. Okay. All right. Now if you're avid watch over here, we done went in depth about that, right? You know over here what the original 13th Amendment is, right, don't you? You know what the Corwin Amendment is, don't you? You know what the Corwin Amendment. I had to say that again, right? So you ask, now see, this is the thing is, as we talked about earlier about roots and how people were programmed of Gen X from 77 with slavery. Same thing is going to happen here about different generation when it comes to the reprogramming of what they tell you about history, if they're teaching history, right? Some people say they actually are teaching in school history of slavery. When I was in school, I don't remember ever talking about that. Now they had their George Washington Day. They talk about Lincoln. You knew about, right? Those things. Again, there was nothing really substantiate that. Now, when he got into high school, then there was a little Afrocentric. You could take Afrocentric. That was the first year I think it started. And it was like, okay, but slavery in itself was something that was, again, set in most minds through that movie, through Roots. And then, again, those who were in New York might have got a different teaching because you had some of the, what they call those master teachers and stuff like that was teaching Pan-Africanism, depending if you was a 5%er and maybe Nation of Islam. I don't know whether they taught that or not, but that was not a curriculum that was, you know, a normal teaching throughout. Everybody did not know that. So you can ask different people of different generations about what they think the Civil War is about, and everybody will say, most will say slavery. Now, slavery, is that the people or is that the institution? You get what I'm saying? Is that about the people or is that about the institution? Because prior to, now let's look at the history now. The South was having its relations with its mother country, which was Britain, right? It was selling its products, doing its dealing with its mother country. The North wasn't getting the economics that were being made from the South. So what they started to do is put the tariff on the South, on its imports. Okay? So you'll look, if you in history, you see by 1828, they call, I think it was called the abomination, right? When they were putting that tax on, when they didn't like that. Now, this is long before 1860, right? This is setting the wheels in motion. See, they want to make you think that everything started right there. It's kind of like saying when people say, Emancipation Proclamation, and then that ended slavery. Wait a minute, that boat had been rolling for how long before you say Emancipation Proclamation? And then what is Emancipation Proclamation? Nothing but a damn announcement. It ain't law. So it didn't mean nothing. You know what I'm saying? It didn't mean nothing. So the same thing here, when you say Civil War and slavery, what led up to it? Well, let's go into it a little bit. So they had the taxation that they were putting the tax and levies on them on the imports in the South, what they felt was unfair to them because they was forcing them to not be able to deal with the motherland and forcing them to have to buy their goods and stuff from the North, making it more expensive for them. So they said, y'all gouging the damn prices. So they go through periods of time from 1828, but it actually starts in 1812. And a lot of people tell you that some of the people who teach Aboriginal knowledge will tell you that 1812 was when we was fighting them. That when we was fighting them. Those of us who got answers that go back to that, right? But anyway, so the compromise of what was all taking place up until 1861 was called the Corwin Amendment. The Corwin Amendment is the original 13th Amendment. That's why when you hear in the 13th Amendment, when it talks about you can go, slavery exists if you go to jail, because in the Corwin Amendment is because why? Congress voted in 1861, the Thomas Corwin Amendment, to prevent Congress from interfering with slavery in any state. That was the Corwin Amendment. Let me say that one more again. The Corwin Amendment was to prevent Congress from interfering with slavery in any state. So what did they do? They voted in the House and Senate. They passed it. But what they wanted to do was ratify it. But what happened was the succession happened at the time of the Corwin Amendment to be ratified. So Congress automatically had eliminated itself from having its say in slavery, because it had already voted in Congress that they agreed that Congress could not interfere with slavery. So now it became state. The state has the right. And to this day, if 2/3 of each state decide they want slavery, slavery is legal again. So what they did is they took that 13th Amendment of what you talk about today is kind of in the front of the original 13th Corwin Amendment. So was the Civil War based, predicated on slavery? Well, the West was being expanded. They did want to expand their territories. Yes, states were having the right to choose if they want to have slaves or not. But you didn't fight because of slavery, the people. You were fighting for what? The institution to expand. Right? That's what they were fighting for. The expanding of the institution. They didn't give shit about the people. Did not Lincoln tell in the Douglas, was it the Douglas debate with Lincoln? He didn't care, but he just wanted to say, he didn't care whether slavery existed or not. He just wanted to save the Union. Right? He didn't care shit about slavery or slaves. He didn't care about that. So it's kind of funny how they did this connotative language as they're trying to say that we all know about slavery, but you're playing games with that. You didn't care shit about the people. Matter of fact, to show you that they didn't care shit about the damn people, a lot of you don't even know shit about this. Let me show you. So, but those of you who are avid watchers over here on WeUpReport, you done heard this before. Do you know they fake? Remember, they said they apologized to black people for discriminating against black people and for slavery. You know they did this in Congress. Do you know what happened? Well, you don't know. Check this out. I'll be right back. Resolution apologizing the enslavement of racial segregation of African Americans. Huh? Oh, Mr. Blowsmine, you going in the archives, ain't you? This is a 2009 and 2010. In 2009, who was your president? Oh, the first black president went. Oh, that guy. Oh, okay. So everybody remember when they said this? There was the apologizing. You just seen the other apology, right? You seen this other apology, right? Right? What was the other apology, right? Remember this? Right? Black Americans to forgive us for Tuskegee, right? 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 And then it came out, right? And this one was in 2009. Right? But let me just show you, just like that one that Bill Clinton did, it was not by Congress. There was no paper to it. It was just a man on a podium speaking because he was the president, and that made it all better. Right? So let me show y'all something here. Let me show you something. You see that there? This was the day that they went and they did this procession. Now what I want to show you, I want you to listen to this and see. Let me take you back to when they really did this. I want you to hear how they did this. I want you to see what took place. And then let's see, did they really apologize to us? Or was it just a formality that looked like they was doing something? And how today
People are getting angry because of the positioning that we're taking to saying tangibles and quid pro quo and right something for something, right? So let me take you back to this 2009 day and let you see this. Ready to see this?
Chair will receive a message.
Oh, I thought you were. I don't know.
Members will please clear the center aisle. Chair will receive a message.
Mr. Speaker, a message from the President of the United States.
Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I'm directed by the President of the United States to deliver to the House of Representatives a message in writing.
What? The chair will receive another message.
Speaker, a message from the Senate.
Mr. Speaker,
Madam Secretary.
I have been directed by the Senate to inform the House that the Senate has agreed with ESCOM Res 26, apologizing for the enslavement and racial segregation of African Americans, in which the concurrence of the House is requested.
There being no question pending pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the House will stand at.
I move that we adjourn.
Mr.
Speaker.
Chair.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. I move that we be adjourned. Mr. Speaker. I move that we be adjourned. Mr. Parliamentary inquiry. Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. Parliamentary inquiry. Mr. Speaker.
And the House has recessed. Subject to the call of the chair, we've been seeing a number of procedural votes today, protest votes. Stephen Dennis of Roll Call telling us earlier today that Republicans have been upset with the amendment process this year in the House, so we're expecting more of these sort of protest votes.
Okay. All right. So now, there you go. What did they do? They faked like they did something. They didn't do nothing. They act like they were going in there. And again, they said they were apologizing for discriminating against black people. Black people in this country, black Americans have so many claims in this country. It ain't just those people say, y'all need to get over slavery. Man, they done did so much, man. It's ridiculous. So when they use here was the Democrats that just 4 years ago, you said you needed to get in, you pulled in, brought in Obama, all this stuff. Heck, COVID, saying black people went and voted in the mail and all that, right, to get you the victory. And then you came back and told us, remember after he won, what did he say?
2040, this country is going to be minority white European. You hear me? Minority white European. And you guys are going to have to start working more with Hispanics, who make up a larger portion of the population than y'all do. Let's get something straight. You shouldn't be disappointed. What I've done so far is more than anybody else has done this far. Okay? Number one. Number two, I mean what I say when I say it.
All right. So that's what we was told. After you got in, after you got the job, no, you guys gonna have to deal with these guys, right? You gonna have to deal with these guys. Now 4 years later, now you need to try to win again. But you can't say that. You done burnt your bridges up. So now we trying to find things to talk about so that we can somehow again invoke black folk, get them involved, get them emotional. Look, She sat there and said as a Republican that she know nothing about slavery. It was civil rights. I mean, with the Civil War. Get out of here with this kiddie shit. You know what I'm saying? Get out of here with that kiddie shit. We done got a little more mature now. You can't get us with the chicken dinner. Matter of fact, isn't that what the young brother that was talking about Clyburn, that's what he's gonna say. He said, can he come to the fish fry? Did y'all hear that part? I don't think I played that part. Hold on, let me play that last part real quick. This is what he says to Clyburn at the end of that conversation there. Listen what he says to him.
Praise for the president, and it sounds to me like you might need to get in contact with his campaign, or his campaign might need to get in contact with you, because right now that messaging isn't breaking through. There's about a 63% approval rating among Black Americans when they voted for him at about 92%. And so something about the talking points you just talked about is not getting to the actual audience that Joe Biden seeks to reach. But I want to move on and ask you about House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries really quickly. He is seeming to be the next wave. He has a lot in front of him with respect to a Congress that is Republican controlled, but trying to steer the Democratic Party in a particular direction. As the elder statesman, give me one piece of advice that you've given him to try and help him move along and move the agenda forward.
He has a lot in front of him, but he has a lot of people behind him. And I'm in that group. He is an incredible leader. He is keeping our caucus together. He is articulating the issues in a way that they need to be articulated. And I do believe that I will be standing with him here on January 15th on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. We'll be here in Columbia, South Carolina together. And he will enunciate on that day that which I think African Americans throughout the country ought to hear. He believes, as I believe, that this democracy is at stake. The freedoms of Americans are at stake. We must re-elect Joe Biden and do it in a way that would demonstrate to the MAGA Republicans and all others who may be looking for an autocracy that democracy will continue to rule the day here in the United States of America.
Last question, Congressman, before I let you go. Are you throwing the fish fry this year, and can I come? That's all I need to know before you get out of here. Congressman Jim Clyburn, thank you so much for joining me. Praise for.
Ain't that something? See? It can't say nothing about what you're going to propose to Black people about something politically tangibly. So what we going to do, look, we got the Obama-like lookalike. He's the next wave, right? And I'm jumping on the next wave because he's articulate. He can, right? All this nonsense, right? And then, oh, you got a fish fry? You know, Black folks, so let's get them some fish fry, right? All this nonsense, this plausible deniability, right? Doing everything, but you don't want to talk to it. Like I said, ASL, American Sign Language. They talking with the dude on the side doing sign language, trying to provoke you, but he won't say nothing directly out of his mouth. They need somebody on the side trying to talk to us, right? You done burnt up your bridges. And they kind of like, again, you heard Blackmore, or Mr. Blackmore, or Blakemore, I'm sorry, Mr. Blakemore said, Trump, come down here, fix this. Remember what he said that? Trump, come down here, fix this. And then what did Corey Brooks say? You know, the loyalty that Black people have been to the Democrats, we think on this one, Black people going to tip the scale in the polls to be in opposition to the Democrat because the loyalty, you don't wore out your welcome mat, right? So here you go. Y'all want to bring the Obama lookalike, which is Leonard Jeffries. Those who know about African studies, Leonard Jeffries, right? And then there's that's his nephew, Hakeem Jeffries, right? So you gonna bring him in as the Obama lookalike? That doesn't pass. If he ran again, he couldn't win. You get what I'm saying? So it's like going back to with the Nikki Haley, you want to use her and beat her up. But see, the thing is about Nikki Haley is, could Nikki Haley even really win? Nikki Haley can't damn win. You know what? She ain't no different now. Okay, she ain't no different than what was his name, Ramaswamy. You know, her and Ramaswamy is cut from the same cloth, right? Did y'all know that? Did you know that Nikki Haley is Indian descent? Did y'all know that that Nikki Haley is Indian descent? And I'm not talking about American Indian. I'm not talking about Indian. I'm talking about Pakistan Indian. You get what I'm saying? She Pakistan Indian, right? So she grew up in South Carolina, went to the HBCU. She knew about a lot about it, so she knew about all that. There ain't nothing new that she didn't know. It was just the fact that, again, trying to placate to a certain audience, saying things. And again, was slavery, Civil War predicated on slavery? Are you talking about the institution? Are you talking about the people? So they try to commingle. And again, the brother that was sitting there talking about he from South Carolina, I don't understand why that brother had them fingernail polish on his damn nails. I don't know if y'all seen that or not. Blue ass fingernail. What the hell, nigga? Anyway, right? So again, everybody plausible deniability, because why? Nobody want to be accountable for the fact that you ain't done nothing. You're doing everything possible not to deal with the biggest, the swing vote. If there is a vote, there's a swing vote by this group. But nobody wants to be, again, what is it called? Benign neglect? That policy? But matter of fact, let me show you one other thing before we go ahead and get up out of here. Let me show y'all something. Let me show you something that they said back in about 66. There was a strategy called, let me show y'all real quick. Let me put this on your screen. See, this is what we got to look at, because it don't make sense. You bringing in all these people in here. And remember, if you've been here earlier when I showed you what California was talking about, how it's going to give Medicare to all undocumented. Matter of fact, I think that started today. You know how the saying is, how California goes, so does the nation. So that means other places that are harboring undocumented people, you'll be doing the same thing. And so the question becomes, have you ever heard of the Cloward-Piven strategy? Have you ever heard of that? Cloward-Piven strategy. Now, what is that, Mr. Blows Your Mind? All right, check this out, y'all. Cloward-Piven strategy says there's 4 steps to it. They said to overload and break the welfare system, to have chaos ensue, take control in the chaos, implement socialism and communism through government force. Let me say that one more again. The Cloward-Piven strategy is to overload and break the welfare system, have chaos ensue, take control in the chaos, implement socialism and communism through government force. Again, they talk about the overburden of the bureaucracy to break the system. Now, wait a minute, think about that. If you're bringing people who supposedly come in here for better life, and a lot of them are not like your people that would be, let's say, doctors, lawyers. These are what we call, during the crisis, they call essential workers, right? Laborers, right? Okay. Like, we don't have people here that could be laborers, right? We have plenty of that, but no, you're bringing them. And what's happening is a lot of them are getting, as you heard Corey Brooks is saying about in Chicago, why Black people are having problems is because they said a lot of the resources that will be going to schools, police, things of that are being reallocated and being given over here. Matter of fact, I think they just gave $95 million that was from the, I think some of the COVID fund that they gave to them. Because they're saying it costs about $40 million a month. And if he was here on that one show when I showed you that Anthony Beals, the alderman, was saying if he could get that kind of money, he could fix his ward easily. But the woman cut him off and was like, we're not talking about that, though. Well, of course not. Because then you would be, making life a little bit more easy for people who put in, who don't really get much out, right? But let me show you something about this thing here. So they talk about, again, to overburden the bureaucracy through break the system, right? Create control chaos, right? Think about that. Haven't y'all been noticing a lot of those videos they've been showing you mugs going in broad daylight, just smashing up damn stores and taking shit? Like, God damn, what's going on in here? I mean, just brazen, just brazen with it, huh? And they said through this usurp power as civil unrest peaks. So, offer government aid as the only solution. Offer government aid as the only solution. So what happens when you're going to get, the overburden of the system, the state can't take it. Matter of fact, even Mayor Brandon Johnson has offered, didn't he offer reparations for those who coming out of incarceration? Did y'all hear that? I got that? Hold on. I might got that for y'all right quick. Yeah, hold on. Check this out. I'll be right back.
Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson says the government has to get more involved in ending the city's out-of-control crime crisis by paying out reparations. Watch.
What I've built within these last 7 months, in order for us to have a better, stronger, and safer Chicago, it really requires the full force of government. And I've just released my full-out community safety plan that not only gets at the root causes of violence in the city of Chicago, but we're making critical investments. We have stood up an entire office dedicated to reentry. So individuals who are returning to our communities who have been incarcerated because of failed policies, we'll have a welcoming space for them. I've added $500,000 for restoration and reparations to address, again, the cycle of violence.
Let's bring in former NYPD officer Bill Stanton. Bill, reparations to fight crime. Please explain that to me.
Yeah, he should be a stand-up comedy because I'm laughing, Brian. I mean, this is so tragic. It's almost comical. I mean, let's go through the list, shall we? Equitable justice. How did that work out? No cash bail, non-indemnification for police officers legally doing their job. Now, what about the victims? We hear nothing but the victims. Talking about spending more taxpayer money for reparations. How about a novel idea of supporting the police, not defunding them, and enforcing the laws on the books, making safe spaces for criminals to further impact the victims who are more than likely persons of color? It makes absolutely no sense, Brian.
Yeah, not a word about the victims. Since Mayor Johnson took over from Mayor Lori Lightfoot, you remember her, murders are down 13%, but total violent crime is up 17%. And what I hear Johnson saying is we've got to have a all of government approach, which of course is just his way of saying we're going to spend a heck of a lot more money. But I just don't see money being the answer here.
No, money is not the answer here. Common sense is. And when I hear the word big government, I see ineffectiveness. I see people prevented from living their liberties. And I see the persons most impacted are persons of color in the inner cities who are the biggest victims. Now you add in Sanctuary City, where more taxpayer money is going. It is a recipe for disaster on many levels.
When police officers in Chicago hear this kind of stuff, Bill, what do they think?
When can I retire? How fast can I put in my papers? What's happening here, Brian, is this. The dirty little secret is a cop makes the same paycheck no matter what. And if you're going to defund me, if you're going to look to prosecute me for doing everything right, where is my initiative to fight crime? Cops will become report takers, not crime fighters. And that's what's happening, in my opinion. This mayor is all he's doing is look to paying off people for votes to get reelected. And that's not the way to go. to safeguard the citizens of Chicago.
So he mentioned the $500,000 for reparations. They've spent over $360 million on the migrant crisis. If I live in Chicago, I'm a law-abiding citizen. All I'm thinking of is, how do I get out of here? Because this growing bill is going to get stuck on my tax bill, and I'm not getting any great services from any of the money we're spending here, Bill.
And that's what you're seeing. You're seeing a mass exodus from all these cities that are sanctuary cities. Why? Hundreds of millions of dollars being allocated towards things that are not enhancing the quality of life towards the American citizen or the resident of these areas, not in education. You're seeing veterans being displaced so they could live under a bridge. So you have migration, and we don't know the criminal records of these people that are coming in. There's no vetting process. You know, throwing more money at a problem does not fix the problem. It makes the politician look like they're doing something.
It's a complete ripoff. Bill Stanton, great thoughts. Thanks for being with us.
And for that, thank you, sir.
All right. Cloward-Piven strategy. Overload, break the welfare system, have chaos ensue, take control in the chaos, implement socialism and communism through government force. Overburden the bureaucracy to break the system, create control chaos, usurp power as civil unrest peaks. Offer government aid as the only solution. The basis behind the Cloward-Piven strategy. The sociologist, the husband and wife, Frances Fox Pivens, and her husband was Richard Cloward. They said this was back in this. It was the Nation magazine back in May 2nd, 1966. It was called "The Weight of the Poor: A Strategy to End Poverty." They was dealing with at the time the decades of societal activism in America. They had the war in Vietnam that was raging at the time. They had the hippie lifestyle that was becoming prominent. They had the Black freedom movement, and the push for civil rights was at that time at its peak. Also at the time, it was at the time of breaking the Jim Crow laws in the South of 1965. And then you also had the LA riots that was happening at that time, which they called the Watts riot or the Watts rebellion. Right? And that the fact that the police, again, was all about how, like, what they say, like George Floyd. That's why you see that re-emerging of George Floyd when they start talking about that in that documentary and about how really George Floyd didn't die, because that shocked the shit out of them, how that whole thing came down. Nobody knew how that, but there were some people who were saying that that was a hoax. A lot of people said that that was some contrived, or some people say it wasn't even real, right? I don't know where they are today, saying there was a lot of people who were out here, and I covered that. And even during the time that I covered that, that video only got 366 views when everybody was sitting there and watching them stories. And I was grabbing as much as I can at the time, showing all kind of stuff, and they kept me still suppressed down there. So again, we show this once again. For those of you who like to be a contributor to the show, that's what we do here. We normally come on Sundays, but a lot of time we've been coming on Mondays. It look like Monday's been a little bit better, but we normally come on Sundays to Mondays. If you ain't got nothing to do, you want something to come over here and listen to, we also take comments and all that other stuff too. And we thank you for being over here and being a participant over here on the WeUpReport. Now let's get back to what we're doing, right? So here it was, this Cloward-Piven strategy that they were talking about. And then again, as you heard that conversation with them was talking about throwing more money, funding, so state. So what happens, according to when you look at the strategy, what they proposed for this Cloward-Piven strategy, they said there was a massive drive to recruit poor onto the welfare roll. If you influx in all these people, and they're coming in, and it's supposed to be, I guess, it's like they got guaranteed work, guaranteed home, again, guaranteed medical, right? It's a lot of guarantees they're getting, right? And so what happens when there again, some of them can't get the work permit. I think there's some of the things that's kind of going around and talking about work permits. Some of them can't. Like majority of the ones in Chicago, only several hundred of them can get work permits, and a lot of them they can't. So what happens to people like that? So if you remember, if you were here when I showed you about in the city council, when they showed in that news report was a woman that was speaking and said on her way coming to the council how hard it was to get there and how crime is rising. Those of you in Chicago know that all of a sudden there's been a real spike in crime. A lot of like car crashes, people being robbed. Again, I'm not saying that Chicago don't have those numbers, but there is a peak in that. And robbing, smashing in stores. And is it contributing to the fact of people who gotta survive, find ways to survive? Is that creating that dynamic? Also, you have the young ones out here who can't get some too, right? So welfare there was a lot of reports of people saying that some people getting so many thousands of dollars in, whether it be for, I guess food stamps and vouchers and all kinds of stuff. So this is all state, right? You're going to burden financial the state, right? So these sociologists who was at this time, they wrote that this theory was aimed again to overburden the social programs at the state level, give the federal government the power to control the people. Okay, their objective is to bust the state and let the federal get it. Now go back to what I showed you or told you about. What was it called? The Corwin Amendment. Remember what the federal government did with the Corwin Amendment? Not to interfere with what? Slavery. Okay. All right. Anyway, so they said there will be a widespread campaign to register eligible poor for the welfare, to help existing recipients obtain their full benefits, produce sporadic disruption, welfare agencies and fiscal disruptions in local and state government. Isn't Mayor Brandon going to Washington trying to get federal funding? They ain't enough state. And then if you talk about reparations, and he talking about, in this case, he wasn't even talking about for descendants of slaves. He was talking about those who have been incarcerated, because a lot of them have been wrongfully incarcerated. And so what do you do with people who've been wrongfully incarcerated and then bring them back into society and then they don't have nothing? So he feel like, if we give them something, because we know that crime and poverty has to do with economics. So when you say throwing money at it, it's always, anytime you talk about black folks getting some money, everybody got a problem with black folks getting some kind of money because it's gonna change. And everybody said, "But what about us?" Well, wait a minute, you gotta fix the original sin first. No, everybody, because everybody in their own way can't foresee black folks at par. Let's be honest, y'all. You may not say nigga outwardly. You know what I'm saying? You might even, but something a lot of yous, I say yous, you just, you got to feel a little better that you're better than somebody. And so because black people can't change their skin, again, I think somebody said about $1 million whiteness. Just the looking of whiteness give you some value. So you could be poor and white, but as long as you're not black, you still you think you might be better. I'm not saying everybody think like that. There are some people who do think like that. So they can't foresee black people getting something and they don't get it, yet they know, okay, when you're talking about American ghettos, right? Do you know that the American ghettos were what they call de jure and de facto. One means government sanction. And I think the American ghettos was sanctioned legislatively. They weren't created just because poor black people and not upkeeping and so forth. They was put in these areas to be put so that they would be out of the way and not around their own. See, and everybody uses the government as the boogeyman. But who elect the people that represent you in them governments? So if Maury Povich was to take the damn blood test, what would that baby come back? Who would be the baby that's father? But everybody try to say it's government and nobody did it. So you got to take, plausible deniability. Nobody wants to take the responsibility. Just let it fall upon these people and letting everybody else in burden. And you don't even see that they finna bust this damn system. Okay, let's show it again. How they coming in? Show it again. Wait, let me show one more again. Let me show one more again. How are they coming in?
Just look at that train packed with migrants heading towards our southern border. It will stop in a Mexican city right across from Eagle Pass, Texas.
Local people, but this is obviously not helping whatsoever. As for the federal government, we get nothing. Alexander Mayorkas, he should be doing something about this. He should be stopping the people crossing the border, but he's not doing his job. Governor Newsom is doing nothing to help the problem, just a lot of rhetoric and
Somebody's got to stand up and say, no, that's wrong. Immigrants are the lifeblood of this country. Immigrants helped build this country. Immigrants are humans just like you and me. And by the way, somebody's got to stand up and say, no, that's wrong. Immigrants are the
people in here telling they got rights, they entitled, and you got the original people who again gave y'all all the afford for you to come somewhere to leave from where you come from, and you act like, again, I think the invisible man is really about the black man or the black people, the invisible man. Like, you know what I'm saying? And our people done got so acclimated in their mind that about hustling and getting your own, that the game of what government is supposed to be entitled and what it's afforded for those people who play in that game, we don't get our share cut. You put us in a group called minorities, right? And these people get the lion's share. And then by the time it comes to you, it's like Charlie Brown Halloween special. You get a rock in your damn bag. Yeah, you know how it goes, right? But we can't say them because we're crying and we're bickering, moaning, and everybody, y'all know, man. Y'all know. There's no again, the history with other folks is no taxation without representation, right? Y'all fought your mother country for, right? Here's the people who don't get nothing for their taxation. You take care of everybody else. And then so bold, then you get people that look like them and say, well, you gonna complain now? That's why in the beginning of my show, it's an immigration. I'm not discriminating against whether they black immigrants or Hispanic immigrants, white immigrants, Indian. Immigration is immigration when it comes to being us. It don't matter. As Mr. Blakemore said, what about our children? What about our offspring? Don't give no shit. Y'all don't give a shit. As long as you get yours, you're fine. And it's funny that, you know, y'all do it with a straight ass face. You do it with such a straight ass face. And so going on with this Piven, again, they said they want to, again, flood the welfare. Matter of fact, didn't Ann Coulter say you can't have open borders and a welfare state? You cannot have both? Did she not? Wait a minute. Didn't Ann Coulter say that? Hold on. Let's go back. Play Ann Coulter.
Various groups, feminists, gay rights groups, and those who are defending immigrants have commandeered the black civil rights experience.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that because I think it's one of the most important points of the book. I mean, I think the way liberals have treated blacks like children and many of their policies have been harmful to blacks. At least they got the beneficiary group right. We do have to, I mean, we shouldn't. There is the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow laws. We don't owe the homeless. We don't owe feminists. We don't owe women who are desirous of having abortions, but that's, or gays who want to get married to one another. That's what civil rights has become for much of the left. They dropped the blacks after 5 minutes.
Immigrant rights are not civil rights?
No, I think civil rights are for blacks. We done to the immigrants. We owe black people something. We have a legacy of slavery. Immigrants haven't even been in this country. Democrats are dropping the blacks and moving on to the Hispanics because they're a larger group of Hispanics now. But could I just say to Jorge, I hate to disagree with you when you're attacking President Obama, but I think the point on immigration is you can have open borders or you can have a welfare state. You cannot have both.
Huh? And that's what she said? You have open borders and welfare state. You cannot have both. So when you have both, Cloward-Piven strategy, going to bust the system. You're going to bust it. Y'all don't see it? You don't see it? Going to bust it, y'all. You heard when the dude said he said good happy talk. He said they not trying to do nothing. They had Mayorkas, which is the Homeland Security. They up there saying you just letting them all come in, right? Matter of fact, what was his name? Schuler said about 7 million or more. He don't know how many, right? They don't know how many up in here. But we know that as it starts to spread more over and more states get it. And when it starts busting out, then they're going to have to come with, remember what what was his name? Peter Yang? What was his name? Michael Yang? When he came with the universal income. They setting that up, y'all. Universal income. Like you're talking about in the Pivens, the Cloward-Piven strategy, we're talking about welfare. Where everybody get a universal income. Even they tell them, remember Dr. King talked about it too, back in the 60s. Well, at the same time, they were talking about the Cloward-Piven strategy. Was they, because Martin Luther King also got a award from Margaret Sanger. You know that? He got an award with them, right? Now we be used, you know what I'm saying? We be trying to be in part of the game, you could be, some people think that you can be brilliant, articulate, and still not be either naive or being used, or you willing participant going against your people. Like there's some people who will say that Thomas, what's his name? Thomas Sowell, they'll say that he is, he intellectually, he's a good guy, and he's just a conservative, Republican's conservative, but to me, kind of like blame black folks and talking about black subculture is the reason why black people couldn't get out of their own shit. Yeah, y'all heard that? Oh, y'all have it? Oh, listen to this. Be right back. Hold on.
The culture in which they grew up was not the culture in which black kids grew up in America today.
So there's
no gangster rap that was pervasively available in Germany. I mean, the average of black kid today, I think, is probably better off, certainly materially, than, say, Ben Carson was when he was growing up.
Ben Carson, the famous black surgeon at Johns Hopkins.
Right.
Who is immensely accomplished in every way.
Yes.
Right.
I would say that certainly the black kids who are growing up today have a higher material standard of living than I had. The difference was that the schools were good when I came along. They were especially good in New York at that time, hard as that is to believe. But the kids who grew up in that same place where I lived, they will not get that same education. Now that can be blamed on somebody, but it has very little to do with what happened 100 or 200 years ago. Countries, I mean, in Nigeria, for example, there's a tribe, the Igbos, who are living in one of the least fertile parts of Nigeria, who were in fact enslaved in centuries past by other tribes and so on. When the British moved in and set up schools, the Igbos went for the schools. By the time Nigeria became independent, the Igbos had climbed above the other groups that had been ahead of them to begin with. But there are all kinds of cross currents of factors the particular culture or the particular geography. You run through the whole list of them.
You cite in Intellectuals and Race, you cite an observation by the intelligence expert, IQ scientist James Flynn, that just stopped me cold. After the Second World War, you've got large numbers of American troops remaining in Germany. For that matter, there's still several tens of thousands there today. And both black and white American soldiers had children with German women. And Flynn discovered that those children growing up in Germany showed no IQ differences at all. The black kids and the white kids, the same. Quoting Intellectuals and Race, Professor Flynn concluded that the reason was that the offspring of black soldiers in Germany, and now you're quoting Professor Flynn, grew up in a nation with no black subculture, close quote. Which means what? Which means they experienced exactly the same expectations. Is this
No. The expectations are external. The culture in which they grew up was not the culture in which black kids grew up in America today.
So they had.
There's no gangster rap that was pervasively available in Germany.
So here's what I'm getting. There is something about black subculture in America today that holds African Americans themselves back?
Yes. In fact,
All right. I know y'all think I'm gonna go here, right? I'm gonna go there, right? But again, strategy of plausible deniability, right? So here's Thomas Sowell. There's a lot of black folks who like Thomas Sowell and believe that he says some things that you are much in agreement with. So, okay. So he said gangster rap, black culture called subculture, right? Now, when he did this interview, when they put this out, because again, I come on once a week, right? So when I seen this, it had been out maybe 2 days. Somebody put this out, you can see a little bit, right? But at the time he spoke, this would have been 2013. So by it being 2024 today, would have been just a little bit over 10 years ago, right? Won't say 11, but say 10. Now he says that blacks today, at that time when he's speaking in 2013, is better off materially. Well, that wouldn't be hard to do in 2013 compared to, I think he's born in 1930s, right? And then he said, I think he talked about Ben Carson. Now they talk about Ben Carson because why, right? Because Ben Carson became renowned because he was, right, surgeon that ended up separating the twins that was conjoined from the body to the head, but they had separate brains, right? And he was part of the 70 team, the 70 people that was part of that team. He was part of the lead. He wasn't the. And so he came from Detroit. He came from poverty, welfare, and was able to, go through the ranks of school to get the scholarships and become that. And so, a lot of people will take that and say, look, he did it. The rest of you could do it too, right? All right. Now, materially, those of us who come out of those, those concrete jungles, a lot of people put on the Tory jewelry in the gear to not look poor. So material ain't shit. Poor people are always gonna look like they got some money, and that's how you know somebody almost damn near poor, because they dressing so they can cover the fact of what they really are, right? So materially of 2013 to say that somebody back in 1930, I guess you could say materially they are a little better, right? But he goes on, he talks about how that, again, he used Ben Carson. How he was a famous heart surgeon. Ben Carson back in 1987 is when he really got his fame. being the lead neurosurgeon. Again, as I say, 70-member surgical team. Again, the conjoined twins of Patrick and Benjamin Binder, who were connected from the back to the head. And that makes him immensely accomplished because he became that. We agree with that. We're not okay. He said that the difference was school then and now. Now, okay, when he went to school, was better. New York schools were better, as into equipping them, preparing them, than it would be later. Now, if he was then, they were better then, and they were good then, and they were better then. So he said, if you look at the same area, it's not at the same par. And then he said, in that situation, you could blame somebody. So you could blame somebody that the school system was shoddy and poor. But then he goes on and he says that, how did he put it? But this has nothing to do with what happened 100 years from history. Why is it that people don't connect history to the present day? Who you are right now, you are a sum total of all your life experiences. You are a sum total of everybody prior before you. So you're a culmination of all things to make what you are right at this present moment. So people who generationally have been affected in different ways, overall, still fighting. Some people have found ways because, again, later on in the conversation with Thomas Sowell, you're going to hear him say something. I won't jump the gun before that. But he says, this is what you do to rid yourself out of the situation. But let's look at this, okay? So instead of him, he going to say this, right? He going to say, he goes to Africa in Nigeria to make his point. See, he didn't stay here. He just said the school system was bad in Nigeria. You could blame somebody. And then he jumped to Africa, the continent. Said in Nigeria, he said the tribe of the Igbos. He said it's the least fertile part, being enslaved by other tribes. And then when the British moved in, did the British just move in? Or was it called imperialism? See how some people, again, plausible deniability. You can always find the good line for the other folks, but boy, when it comes to you, no, you're just subculture in this rap music, right? But these other folks, oh, they moved in Nigeria. Oh, he made it so nice. They just moved in Nigeria. And you know what? They built schools. And you know what? The Igbos went to the schools. See, the Igbos took advantage of the schools while the other ones didn't want nothing from the imperialists. Let me say that one more again. He says that the Igbos took advantage of the nice British who came in as imperialists to the schools they built, took advantage of the school while the rest of them did not, and they fared well better. Well. What do we call that, y'all? What do we call that? Isn't that you get acclimated in to the system of the imperialists? He's going to teach you to have, back at those who played John Madden back in the day, when the coach be a black one and had a white ass head. Let me say that one more again. You ever played the John Madden when the black coach had a white ass head? Well, that's all that shit is, right? You got a black body, but you got to have a white ass head. And that's what the school system do, right? Get your white acclimated. I don't pay no attention to me. I'm just talking, right? Right? So what he goes on and says, okay, so they took advantage, and then because they took the advantage, he said, now there were all kinds of cross factors, right? He said particular culture, geography, right? See, he want to make the distinction that the Igbo's culture compared to the Black American culture being a subculture, and with rap music. See, the Igbos took advantage of the education, but Black people don't do that. Then he showed you in his book, the intellectual, what he called the intellectual in race. It referenced about Black and whites in Germany who had children. Now check this out. He's gonna talk about how in war, I guess that's World War I, where they went, the Black soldiers went up in Germany. Now, a lot of those of us who have family members and, grandfather, great-grandfather, so far, who went to Germany, and they talked about how in Germany they were treated better than when they came. They didn't come back here because the treatment was better. So here he is, he's gonna use that as a reference. Say, oh, Black folks went to Germany, married a white German woman, had children, and that means the children would be, Black because the daddy Black, right? And there was no distinction in IQ because the culture. See, the Black American and the German woman in Germany with German culture. See, there was no subculture. That's what Black Americans, the Tatas, the Digi Moors, all of us, we cry about with the immigrants. You get in to fit in. You don't come in changing shit. You don't come in here trying to pull rank, talking about we created hip hop. No. Did you have it where you came from? You can only talk about shit for where you come from. See? So why would the Black American soldier go to Germany trying to make German America when he in Germany? He gonna get in and fit in where he's supposed to. Now, his child, being a mixed child, that's gonna be in Germany, where else he gonna be acclimated in? What else he gonna fit into? Why would he have, and matter of fact, to show you how far he reaching, wasn't no goddamn rap in 1940 or 1930. So why would you say Black subculture with rap when rap don't even exist yet? But you see, because we got our people who always, I don't know if he really our people now, but you always got out there people who ready to go out here and say something negative about Black folks to make them other folk feel good. Y'all know how it go. Well, I'm at the 311 mark, huh? I'm gonna keep y'all up in here. All right, we're gonna keep going then. All right. Go hit that like button for me again. Hit that like button for me. If you'd like to do any donation to the show, we the most hated show in the Black corner of YouTube. You don't know why? You don't know why? You don't know why? Well, okay. Let's see. If I don't see then I'm gonna be back on next week. Let's see. We're gonna see what y'all do. But anyway, all right. I'm not messing with y'all. But anyway, all right. So now he's saying that again, right? The culture from which the parents are the same, huh? He said the culture is the same. No, it's just the fact that what? A Black American coming in German is going to adapt to German culture. And if his wife is German, he's going to learn what he needs to know and how to be able to move and be acclimated in there. He's not going to come in there and turn the apple cart over and make y'all be like them. Right? So you blame that Black people are stuck. And the reason why we can't move forward is because you said gangster rap. Now, keep that in mind, what he said, right? Keep that in mind, because I want to dispel that. I want to dispel that because the same year that he's saying this in 2013, he didn't realize the year before him that letter came out and what they said about rap music and gangster rap, huh? See, when you're tooling, when people are fidgeting, tooling, to use the science or the hidden science they're using to make something bad on Black people, but everybody want to put the bad negative press and make Black people to be the bearers of bad news, the bearers of all evil, when you ain't gonna admit the fact that y'all in there fucking with shit. You ain't gonna talk about that part, right? We're not gonna talk about that. Yeah, I know. So here's the second part he says. All right, here, listen to this, be right back. It's short.
What is to be done? Take a look at President Lyndon Johnson speaking at Howard University in 1965.
But freedom is not enough. You do not wipe away the scars of centuries by saying now, You are free to go where you want. Now do as you desire and choose the leaders you please. You do not take a person who for years has been hobbled by chains and liberate him, bringing up to the starting line of a race, and then say you are free to compete with all the others, and still justly believe that you have been completely fair.
It's pathetic. It's not a question of, there's no you who has the control to be completely fair or completely unfair. I mean, the circumstances are, so someone once criticized the mental tests on grounds that the tests were unfair. And I think it was David Reisman who said, the tests are not unfair. Life is unfair, and the tests are measuring the results. But who has control of life? Who has control of the past? Who has control of the culture that people have in the present, which they've inherited from the past?
So Lyndon Johnson, in fact, although good liberal that he was, at least in regard, Lyndon Johnson had a complicated career and changed positions on issues many times, but good liberal though he was at that moment, he was in fact engaging in a breathtaking arrogance.
Yes.
On two counts. One, that white people were the ones who were responsible for where black people stood in the race, that it was up to whites entirely. That blacks, as he described, I put
devastating.
black people are passive, they're acted upon.
That's right, that's right.
And then the second act of arrogance is the supposition that somehow the federal government could fix it.
Yes. It is staggering. But if you wanted to be charitable, you could say, well, he said this in 1965. But if you say, all right, why are people now repeating it in 2013 when we've had nearly half a century of experience to the contrary? And if you look within the black community, those blacks who had escaped what I call the black redneck culture, they've moved on. So, but it's the culture the different parts of the black community had. They were different.
All right. So as the beginning of, you seen the LBJ speak at Howard University. I think it was a commencement speech he did in 1965. And you heard what he says. You do not take a person who for years have been hobbled by chains, liberate him, bring him up to the starting line of a race, and then say, you are free to compete with all the others, and still justly believe that you have been completely fair. We seek not just legal equity, but human ability, not just equality as a right and a theory, but equality as a fact and equality as a result. Now, what did he say? It's pathetic. It's no you who has control. Now, see, that sounds right. See, what he's saying is, man don't get to control, man. That which create all things, right? That would be politically correct to say. But under the situation and what we've been living under, oh yeah, there is a you. Oh yeah, there is a you. You see me? I've been stuck on 100 views for the last 6-7 years. Is it me, or there are you somewhere? Right? He said, who has control to be fair or completely fair? He making it say that there's nobody can be the you that can control whether somebody is completely unfair or fair to a people. So, I mean, the truth of the matter is, do you really believe that people, I mean, honestly, in your heart of heart, right of right, you believe that you can take a people who have been for years, have been hobbled? You remember in, what was that movie with Misery? Remember, oh, Paul, I love you, Paul. And she put the damn wood between his shit and broke both his damn ankles. Well, I love you, Paul. Yeah, hobbled his ass, right? So you're going to keep hobbling Paul. And what Paul had to do? Paul had to find a way to get his ass out that bed, put that damn poison in that drink, bust her shit to the white meat. Right? And bust her shit to the white meat till he can finally get his ass up out of that bed, right? Now that's just an analogy now, right? So, but then that's the way he was to be what? Liberated. Because if it was up to her, she being the you, she won't keep his ass hobbled, incapacitated at her whim, and he had to deal with her mood swings and her happiness and all the he had to deal with all the shit. See, that's kind of the position, our people have been in. I know a lot of people don't want to talk about that. I know a lot of that. Well, they're not victims, whatever you say, right? So then after being hobbled and been under that for generations, it ain't just years. See, years is just an individual. When you start saying generations, now you're talking about the effects upon, peoples, families. And so with that being said, now you take them people and then you release them and say, compete with everybody else. Go to school and learn like everybody else. What about the vestiges of all that has been done? And there was a lot of things being done, right? Right? And then say you compete with all others. And yet, when you look at the history, will tell you, right, whatever we believe civil rights to be, because I think civil rights is full of shit. That's just me. All this civil rights is saying that you can go into public government buildings, right? Right? You have the right to go in. That's it. That's all it is. Ain't too much else to that. Ain't not too much else to that, right? That's all it was, right? So now, with that being said, then you say voting rights. And at the same time you say civil rights, voting rights, you bring immigrants right in with them. Compete. And so when people look at us and wonder, when you come here and say black people have not done nothing and been lazy and they don't want nothing, what's a good way to make this so people can understand this shit? Let you have your kid. You've been promised your kid all year something for Christmas. And then on the day of Christmas, you already told them that was a package right there for them. But you done took in some migrants. And you told your son, let the migrants have them. I'll get you something else. How your kid gonna feel? You done had them all hyped up, ready, Christmas, dreaming, knowing they got the present with the name on it, and then you gonna give it to the immigrant. How your kid gonna feel? How your kid gonna react, and what is it gonna do to them as they go forward dealing with you? Nobody like to put that shit into reality. Just get over it. 2024, y'all. I'm not gonna stop. I'm not gonna stop. Y'all can stop. I ain't gonna stop. I'm not gonna stop. Right? So, what they say now, right? So he goes on and says, who can control the past? Who can control the people's culture of the present from which they inherit from their past? He tried to blame it on the control belongs to you. Not what happened to you, but what you did to make that happen. Plausible deniability. Never want to blame the truth of it. It's always find a way to boomerang and put it back on us. That's been one of our biggest problems with a lot of people. And again, you can be the most intellectual, most decorated, and yet you still can be a sellout to your own damn people. Whether you know it or you don't know it. And then the other guy, the white guy, says LBJ was taking a breathtaking arrogance. He said 2 counts. He said that white people are the ones responsible for where they stood in the race. Wait a minute. Who again, when we say government? and the representation by voting by the people who represented the people who were the majority, Maury Povich come out the back, who's going to be the father of that baby? See, the not plausible deniability. Nobody wants to say the truth. Find a way to pass the buck as if it was up to whites entirely. Who else was stopping it? Let's be honest. Who else? It's kind of like saying, you hear some people saying about that Civil War, and then some people saying, well, white people should be getting reparations because they were help fighting against stop slavery. They're so bold and arrogant. They said, fuck what happened to you. We try to fight to stop it. But was it true though? Were you really fighting to stop slavery about the people? Or was the expansion of the institution? Or was it just the fact that supposedly the South lost the war and they got pardoned, right? Remember, they got pardoned. That's why they get the 40 acres and the mule, because they pardoned the South, right? And it said, fuck it. We get contracts and you go back down there and work with them, and then we're forced them to pay you. What happened with that deal? Nothing. Nothing. So was it entirely by them? Sure it was. Sure it was. He said the blacks are passive to be acted upon. He said making it like the blacks were being passive. Wait a minute. Do you not? Wait a minute. Okay, so they tell us after that the military stopped and then left blacks to have to fend under that after they took the military out and they had free will with no law. And you understand the stories that they tell about them times? Oh, sure, they was entirely happy. Surely they were, right? And blacks had the passive to be acted upon. Of course they were, right? It says the supposition that the federal government could fix it. Yes, it created it. It sanctioned it. So if you are the cause, then you could be the fixer. So he says about LBJ, he said, well, if we want to be charitable, you could say that when he said that, it was 1965. And he didn't understand why people in 2013 would be talking about what Lyndon B. Johnson said, because he said, if you hobble people and put them in change and liberate them, how do you expect them to be equal in a race that they already far behind? But that's not right in the way to look at shit. We're not supposed to look at it that way. You're supposed to forget about all that and just compete. Now you done made the United States, not the fact that it's just now, let's say, mixed with people. You got this shit now international. Think about that shit. You done hobbled these people, kept them, and I'm not going to say all, but a majority of them. And then now you're bringing it internationally, everybody else, and then say compete with that too. Sad, man. It's sad that people will not look at the reality of the shit because for whatever reason it is. But if that is shall be the day we all have to deal with whatever the Almighty be, you have to stand in your shit. You're going to have to stand in your shit one way or the other, right? All right, but anyway, don't pay no attention to me. Then he says that when there's been a half a century of the experience to the contrary, if you look in the black community, these blacks who escaped the black redneck cultures. Now, wait a minute. So you're talking about the ones that came out of the so-called migrations of the 1910s, the 1940s, the 1940s, the 1970s, the ones that escaped the redneck, which you said the redneck culture. What about the ones that still persist, that stayed and never left? And now in 2023 and 24, they're on their way back to the redneck cultures because of what done happened over time. Are we going to be honest about that? No, he said they moved on. It's culture of difference. See? Culture of difference. See? Everything than what it really is. We don't want to deal with that part. I got two more parts and I'll be done with that, y'all. But I appreciate y'all being here because I want to address that last part about that hip hop. So let me go to the third part and check this out. I'll be right back.
Daniel Patrick Moynihan, in his famous 1965 report entitled "The Negro Family: The Case for National Action," close quote. Longish quotation, but it gets to something, I believe. Moynihan, the fundamental problem is that of family structure. The Negro family in the urban ghettos is crumbling. A middle class has managed to save itself, but for vast numbers of the unskilled and poorly educated, the fabric of conventional social relationships has all but disintegrated. So long as this situation persists, the cycle of poverty and disadvantage will continue to repeat itself. Close quote. When Moynihan wrote those words, the illegitimacy rate among African Americans was 25%. Today, the illegitimacy rate among white Americans is 36%. Among Hispanics, more than 50%, and among African Americans, more than 70%.
Yes.
Aside from throwing up your hands in despair, what is to be done?
The first thing to be done is to understand that this was a result of policies begun in the 1960s. This is not a legacy of what happened 100 years before the 1960s.
The breakdown of the black family is not a legacy of slavery.
No. If you the classic study of this goes all the way back to the era of slavery, and they find that most black kids, even under slavery, had lived with two parents, and that was true all the way up until the 1960s. And so, if you really want to find out what has happened, what's changed, it has changed since the 1960s. And the fact that whites now have a higher rate of illegitimacy than blacks had when Moynihan wrote suggests that this is something that spreads out. But if you look at something else, if you look at those blacks, and look at black husband-wife families, the poverty rate among such families has been in single digits every year since 1994. And so if you look at the external causes, why the husband and wife families and the welfare single mom families all are facing the same society and objective things, but the results are radically different because the cultures and values are different.
So you would roll back welfare. I guess that's the principal policy. So what would Tom Sowell do? One, you'd eliminate welfare, you'd reform welfare. What would you do?
Roll it back.
All right. And what about affirmative action?
Eliminate it.
Just gone.
Yeah.
Colorblind policy completely. All right. Daniel Pat.
So he talks about the Moynihan report of 1965. We're talking about the Negro family case for national action, right? The fundamental problem is that a family structure, the Negro family in the urban ghettos is crumbling. A middle class group has managed to save itself, but for the vast members of the unskilled and poorly educated, the fabric of conventional social relationship has all but disintegrated, right? All right, so the urban ghetto is crumbling. Now, according to American ghettos, as I was saying earlier, they have always perceived as being high in crime and poverty. It was perceived. It was the perception by other people because why? Congregation of black people is always bad, right? Mob action when we was coming up, too many of us standing on the corner together was called mob action, right? Whether we could just be sitting out there just shooting the shit with each other, not really into nothing. Ain't got much else to do. The park closed. Ain't got no YMCAs or nothing like that. So sometimes we just be on the corner shooting the shit, right? But we could be up to mob action because too many of us together, we could be conspiring to be doing something, right? So the police would move us off the corner. Okay, right? So the stigmatization on urban neighborhoods is that high in crime and poverty. But when you understand about municipalities and how police got to have an area that's high in crime, that's why the news always reported saying that black, always reporting the crime and the badness in the hoods is because that's the only way you're gonna be able to have police there, right? Matter of fact, you think about police, they really just security guards that got power by statutes, codes. Because really, the real police is the sheriff, right? And really, they got too much power, to be honest about it. But they really like security guards. But anyway, so they roam in these areas, right? Now, when they talk about the origins of these so-called American ghettos, they say they're specific to the United States and its laws. Let me say that one more again. The origins of these areas that you call the American ghettos are specific to the United States and its laws. They were created by legislation and private efforts to segregate America for politics, political, economic, and social and ideological reasons. Let me say that one more again. See, you say culture. I say plausible deniability. The ghettos of America were specific to the United States and its laws. What that mean? Its laws. Through legislation and private efforts to segregate America for political, economic, social, ideological reasons. They call it de jure or de facto segregation. That's by law. Segregation was by law. Lawful. Lawful. So how's that culture? When somebody intentionally has put you in a place so that, like a science in a lab. It's kind of like people in prison. I studied to see reactions. It's like if you worked in, let's say, where you take care of people who are disabled, mental, and you give them medications. And sometimes what happens is when the medications gets screwed up, either too strong, not strong enough, or people have mixed them up, and the house will go up. Right? So all you could do is sit there and watch and let them vent out and let them do what they got to do. Right? So if I did that intentionally, I'll know how to get, how this works. It's like saying, well, if I legalize this now and I start putting this in there, I'll know how you're going to act because scientifically we already know, how that's going to manifest itself. Right? So the same thing, if I put you in a confined area and would deindustrialize it because we take the economic flow, which is a lot of the jobs that a lot of the communities were living in warehouses, driving jobs, stuff like that. And then those things don't exist no more. Those people can't take care of their family. So the structure of the family economically is falling apart, which means they're going to rely on become a welfare. And then that means that the man will feel less than a man because he feel like he can't be there, he can't provide. So what does he do? It's not that he leave his children because he don't love them. He has to find some use for himself. And it may means back in the day, Kwai Chain King, which is Kung Fu, leave from one place to another and end up finally meeting somebody else and starting that cycle all over again. But it was created. It was designed. It was legislated. It was made by law. But nobody want to talk about that part. Nobody want to talk about that. Matter of fact, they even talk about how those barriers that exist as obstacles and impediments that prevent the people from existing in the markets or industries. So you quarantine them out. You put barriers on them on these highly specialized assets. And this asset here is, how else do you have some of these government programs to, fund if you don't have a deprived people who need these services? So now it makes it hard for these people to sell, relocate, and they can't get out. You know, Jim Clyburn had talked about about that damn Eisenhower and that damn Highway Act, which again, that Highway Act, a lot of them highways and expressways they built, where did they build them through? Black communities, black businesses, black churches. Displacing a lot of blacks and creating more barriers. But I don't talk about that. We make all that shit up. Now we make all that shit up, right? So, again, talking about vast numbers of unskilled, poorly educated. Why? Look at the schools. Let's say, for instance, in Chicago. One time, I always say Chicago had the worst school in America. Was always ranked 50th. Ain't that something? 50th. It's the third largest city in America. Probably the highest population. Well, I'm gonna say the highest. Well, probably got the biggest population of Black Americans, Indigenous Americans, and Tatanigi Moors, right? But it had the worst school system in America. Was always deemed that. And then again, school. Sometimes people just smart. Intelligent. They ain't got to do it the goddamn school. But then those who need help, and then again, in the suburbs, teachers in inner cities or urban areas couldn't even be a teacher in the suburb because they're not qualified enough. But they're good enough to be in the classroom to teach them. And then you outdating the kind of information that you're giving them, right? That ain't all by design. Would you really want somebody who is from the poor but is just as gifted mentally as your kid who's rich? Would you want me competing with you? Or would you put the barriers so that there would be a distinction between you and them? Because like he said, there is no you to make fair and unfair, but there is a you. There is one. There's one, right? Yeah, we know there's one, right? And so he goes on, he talks about how long these the cycle of poverty and disadvantage will continue to repeat itself, right? It'll keep persisting under these conditions. Of course it was. Because there's no employment there. People got to work outside of those communities. Nobody never think about none of that shit. Where do Black people work at when they live in those areas? Where do they look at? Can everybody get a job? It's crazy because nobody really want to put the laying shit out for what it really is. He talking about the illegitimacy rate of 25% in 1965, and it says that whites in 2013 was 36%. Hispanic was over 50%. But then in 2013, at the time when he's talking now, blacks were 70%. Illegitimacy rates, right? And he said this was a result of policy started from the 1960s. This is not a legacy that was from prior to 1960. So what he was trying to say is that blacks have always had two-parent homes back going towards, when you say slavery. He counting on the plantation two-parent home. Is that a two-parent home if you under a plantation? He count that in. And then it went to the 1960s, then you start having illegitimacies. Then that stuff became more and more. Like, goddamn, really? Okay. All right. Okay. So the breakdown of the Black family isn't from legacy of slavery. I don't think nobody's saying the breakdown of the family structure is from slavery. There's a lot of other mitigated factors that people are denying. Again, plausible deniability. You don't want to admit plot schemes. Matter of fact, fuck it. Let me just go right on to the goddamn shit. Let's go right on here. Let's go, fuck it. Just go right over here. Let's go here. Because he said, right? He said rap music, right? That's what he said. He said rap music caused all the fucking problems with Black people, with this Black subculture. Shit, Black, okay. What they say, 50 years of hip hop? They just talk about 50 right now, right? 50 to, what is that? Okay. We were talking about 50 years, 50 minus what so when he was talking to 2013, he could say that at that time, right? Now, again, as he's saying that in 2013, he knew nothing about the letter that came out in 2012. That's showing right there, the secret meeting that changed rap music and destroyed a generation. He knew nothing about that, right? This is in 91. He witnessed this in 91. The person who talked about that, it had been 20 years since he wanted to talk about it, which was in 91. When it had actually happened 20 years later, it would have been, 2000, about 11, 12. And he said he believed that this was the biggest turning point in popular music. Now, popular music, is that black subculture, or is black music, black culture, American culture? You keep saying sub, right? Then he said, ultimately, it was the American society that got affected. Not just black culture, American society got affected by this. Between the 1980s and 90s, he called the decision makers. He even talked about there was established companies in the music business. There were one or more that were established companies in the music industry. That means it was somebody of one of them big wigs with one of them big record companies or music industry companies. The individual who was talking, he said he wasn't even from here, he was from Europe, came here in the early 80s. He said in those days, the industry had more control over the public, means to influence them in any way it wanted. Does that have anything to do with the culture? So if somebody has the Simon Says to be able to fidget, scientifically use this as a tool against people, unbeknownst to them, are they victims or did they create that? He said, in 1991, he was invited to a closed-door meeting with a small group of music business insiders to discuss the rap music's new direction. He believed it was one of the most unethical, destructive business practices he had ever seen. That's him saying that. Now, I heard what you said, black subculture and rap music. Rap music was a product that was a way for those who had a talent to use, and you had a business that could pay them for that talent, but you also use it as a tool to do something else. So he talked about how this was held at a private residence. He said about 25 to 30 people being there. A lot of them was people he had known, they were familiar faces. He said many of them didn't even care about rap music of that time. And they had failed to see the purpose of why they was gathering in this private to discuss about the future of rap. He said, and also there was a little group that was there that were not familiar, but they kind of stand off to the rest of them. He said they didn't seem to be a part of the industry, but they had them to sign a confidentiality agreement preventing them from publicly discussing the information that was going to be revealed in that. So the agreement was only a page long, but it was very clear about the matter and the consequences. Violating the terms would result in them losing their jobs. He said there was a few of them that decided they didn't want to, and they walked out. The people who were very unfamiliar to him collected the papers. He said one of the colleagues that he knew, but he wasn't going to give the name about to him, had took the floor, and he introduced the man that he was going to speak to everybody. He think he was the owner of the residence, but he never had confirmed that. The person who it was that was speaking praised all of them for the success they had achieved in the industry, congratulated them on being selected to be a part of this decision making. And he went on to tell them that their respective companies were represented had invested in a very profitable industry. And said they could become even more rewarding with their active involvement. So the companies that they worked for had invested millions into building of privately owned prisons, and that their position of influence in the music industry would actually impact the profitability of the investment. But he said it's black subculture. People love to blame black music, black culture, black people, black. He said they were told that these prisons were to be built by privately owned companies who receive funding from the government based on the number of inmates. Let me say that one more again. According to what he said in this, he said, we were told that these prisons were built by privately owned companies who receive funding from the government based on the number of inmates. The more inmates, the more money the government would pay these prisons. As they become publicly traded, they had the ability to buy shares in it. Told us that since our employers had become silent investors in this prison business, their interest was to make sure that these prisons remain filled. Said their job was to make this happen by marketing music which promotes criminal behavior, rap being the music of choice. This would be a great situation for them. Music would be becoming an increasingly profitable market for their companies and employees, and be able to buy personal stocks in these prisons. Is this black subculture? Is this black subculture? He said months passed, rap music had definitely changed the direction. Rap acts talked about politics and harmless fun, quickly faded away. Gangster rap started dominating the airwaves. The idea presented that day had been successfully implemented. And as in the order the day had been given, all major labels executive music was climbing the charts. More than happy to capitalize on it. Each one was churning out their very own gangster rap, like assembly line. Is this black subculture? Did black people make that? We got a lot of people love to blame black people for everything. Black people, you just lazy. Black people, this. Hey, man. You know how they show, I think, what is that? The world lifting the atlas and carrying the weight of the world. That's black folks, man. We've been carrying a lot of y'all bullshit for a long ass time. We've been carrying y'all shit for a long ass time. Y'all want to see us broke. You want to see us break. Some of our own people so turned out that they even wish it upon ourselves. They pray for our own downfall. But not knowing all the machinations and things that have been put against us. And you have people who, again, you may be intellectual and smart and all that, but that don't necessarily mean that you still ain't anti yourself, because you are plausibly denying ability of what really took place. And you rather put it on, it's safer to say us than to say what it is. Again, I'm the most hated show in the black corner of YouTube. You didn't know, you better ask somebody. All right? So, yeah, I come on it Sunday to Monday. You ain't got nothing to do. Come every Sunday to Monday. I may have something for when it'll come over the week. That's what we do. So, with that being said, I don't know what else to be said, right? Strategy of plausible deniability. Everybody finds a way to boomerang it back on us no matter what. to our own damn people get to the same damn way. Not knowing the cause and effects of a lot of things, and some of the stuff is right now. See, now, as you get older and you live long enough, you start looking back and looking at the cause and effects of why shit manifests. You got rap, but you also had AIDS. You also have incarceration. You also have birth control. You got a lot of shit that's going on at the birth and all that stuff come across there. Like I said, carried away the world, man. When the salt loses its strength, what the world gonna have? Is that what y'all waiting on? Once the salt don't got no more left in it, this shit is over. And I don't think y'all ain't paying attention to that shit. When the salt loses its strength, it's over. How much more y'all gonna keep trying to put on our fucking backs? Y'all better ask yourself. When the salt loses its strength, it's over. Because y'all ain't gonna have shit else to copy. You ain't gonna have nothing else to do. All the shit people keep trying to claim, talking about they made and created. Nigga, we the Boston Garden. You see all them goddamn banners up there? We the #1 in that shit. How a motherfucker they ain't got no banners coming in talking about he was equal partner with a motherfucker that got all the banners on the damn. Y'all crazy as hell. But keep on. You're going to get what y'all asking for. Again, I'm the most hated show in the black corner of the internet. I'm your host, Mr. Blow Your Mind, and this has been another We Up Report. I want to thank each and every one of y'all who came here tonight. Again, I have another channel. It's We Up Report. Go over there, subscribe to me, help me to get to that 100 so I can go over there and at least try to get them to make me get a little bit, turn that channel in for me if you're willing to do that much. Oh, we got something over here. We're going to come over a week. We take about a week to see what's going on. I find something, come back, I bring it for you. We don't do like everybody else. We don't do the Hollywood and all that. But if it just happens to be something to fall in, I will do it. But pertaining to that, we're always looking at all the other stuff in between. So again, I'm your host, the Whiteologist, Mr. Blow Your Mind. There's been another We Up Report. Into the next show, y'all. Into the next show.
Remember, the enemy has only images and illusions, behind which he hides his true motives. Destroy the image, and you will break the enemy.